Thank you all and welcome to our regular council meeting of Tuesday, June 26th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda, adoption of the agenda. Are there any amendments from administration? Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Worship. There is one amendment to the agenda under bylaws. Bylaw 919-18, Forest Heights redistricting, first reading. Copies of the bylaw have been distributed to council and the agenda package has been updated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, so moved.
Thank you. All in favor? That carries unanimously. All right, item number 3 on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. I move the council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. And they're all minutes this week. Items 4A, B, and C, the regular council meeting of June 12th, 2018. The committee of the whole meeting, June 19th, 2018. And the minutes of the special council meeting, June 19th, 2018. Can I get a motion to Can I move that council consent to approve those? Councillor Barnhart, question?
Yes, a question. If you could please take out 4B from that list. I do have a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion as amended is to move without debate items 4A and 4C. All in favor? Carried. All right, item 4B, adoption of the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting, June 19th, 2019. Councillor Barnhart.
Sorry, Your Worship. The reason that I've asked this to be brought forward is when I did do the reading, because I wasn't able to attend that meeting, I noticed that there were 2 motions in number 4, and perhaps the administration can explain why we have question marks in the minutes. It's very toward the bottom, 4A. It's moved by question mark, that the committee move in camera. So I'm not sure whether that's, I'm assuming it's a typo, but I just wanted to clarify. It does have a motion number next to it, so I didn't know what to think.
Page 17 of 114.
There it is, right there. Right there.
Where are we looking?
The last motion.
Move by. Yes, that's a typo.
So we just moved that it be fixed.
Can we fix it? Can we move? Ms. Winder.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Councillor Barnhart. That is definitely a typo. I do have the recording and I can't put that name in there. So when I print the final copy, we'll add the name into there with the amendment to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart, care to move the minutes as amended?
So moved, Your Worship. So moved.
All in favor? Carried unanimously. All right, next up on our agenda tonight is item 5, public hearings. First one tonight, bylaw 914-18. Triumph Phase 6 Land Use Bylaw Amendment. Sorry? We're online. All right. Declare the public hearing open. The hearing is being held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act as amended. Ms. Winter, care to make a few comments?
Thank you, Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. The purpose of bylaw 914-18 for Triumph Estates Phase 6 is to amend the land use bylaw number 796-12 of the town of Beaumont. In particular, Schedule A, land use districts mapped by redistricting a portion of the northeast quarter 2650-24-W4M from R1A low density residential district to R1B low density small lot residential district to PRS West Public Recreation Services District. Notice of the public hearing was given in writing to the applicant, adjacent property owners, applicable agencies, and Leduc County. The public hearing notice was advertised in the local newspaper on June 15th and 22nd, 2018. Written submissions received are included in the agenda package, and there is nothing to read into the record at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Addressing us tonight on behalf of the Director of Integrated Growth is Mr. Wong.
Good evening, His Worship and members of Council. The Department received an application to district a portion of the northeast corridor of Section 26, Township 50, Range 24, west of the 4th Meridian in the Triumph Estate neighborhood. The current redistricting application proposes to amend the land use bylaw from R1A, low density residential district, to R1B, low density small lots residential, and PRS, public recreation services district, as shown on Schedule A of the bylaw. The proposal complies with other plans and transition well into the adjacent neighborhoods while incrementally increasing the density by using land more efficiently.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of council for Mr. Wong? All right, seeing none. Is the applicant and or their designated here this evening to make a presentation?
I don't think he is.
No? Anybody wishing to speak in favor of the bylaw? Anybody opposed? Anybody that deems themselves affected and wishes to be heard? All right. This public hearing is now closed. All right, next item on our agenda, item 5B, bylaw 915-18, municipal reserve disposal in Place Chalarousse. This public hearing is now open, and the hearing is being held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act as amended. Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to members of council and the public, the purpose of bylaw 915-18 is to dispose of the municipal reserve in lot 11MR, Block 5, Plan 152-1520 in Place Chalarousse Business Park to enable Place Chalarousse Phase 7 redistricting. Notice of the public hearing was given in writing to the applicant, adjacent property owners, applicable agencies, and Leduc County. The public hearing was advertised in the local newspaper on June 15th and 22nd, 2018. Written submissions received are included into the public hearing agenda package, and there is nothing to read into the record at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Director of Integrated Growth, once again, Mr. Wong.
His Worship and members of Council, this public hearing is for an application to redistrict Lot 10 and Lot 11MR, Block 5, Plan 152-1520 in the Place Chalarousse Business Park, north of Highway 625, south of Magazine Avenue, and west of the existing temporary Francophone school, as shown on Schedule 8 of the bylaw 915-18. In order for the redistricting application to proceed, the municipal reserve that was designated previously, that is not 11MR, at the north portion of the site needs to be disposed so it can be relocated that is swapped and redistricted on the south portion of the site. The subject site has challenges with grading and stormwater. As such, the applicant proposes to reconfigure the site development plan to take advantage of the natural topography of the area by relocating the MR to the south of the development area. Section 674, subsection 1 of the Municipal Government Act requires a council to hold a public hearing prior to the disposal of municipal reserve. The MGA also requires a sign to be posted on the site that included information on the proposal to remove the municipal reserve designation, which the applicant has done so. Once approved, the council may direct the designated officer to notify the registrar of the land titles office that the provisions of the MGA have been complied, and to request the registrar to remove the MR destination from the lands legally described as Lot 11MR, Block 5, Plan 152-1520. Administration received one submission from Leduc County that they do not have concerns to the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members of council? All right, seeing none. Is there a representative of the applicant or their designate here this evening that wishes to make a presentation?
Not for this one.
Not for this one. Okay. Are there those in attendance that wish to speak in favor of the bylaw? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition?
Question, please.
Sure.
So basically, we're the law.
Can you come up to the mic, state your name, sign in?
My name's Richard LeBlanc. I own the buildings next door, those 6 little buildings to the right of the parcel there. And so just to be clear, the little where it says .31, that's going to become commercial property also? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And is there any way that could just be squared up and we could just leave that green space like they have on the other parcel? So it doesn't obscure, doesn't stop the visibility of my site?
That definitely has the possibility because, but then the municipal reserve parcel, maybe I should come back up here.
Sure.
But then the municipal reserve parcel will be divided into 2 portions. The one, the rectangular parcel just opposite to your area, but then the proposed new municipal reserve site to the south will be much smaller. So there would be a less opportunity for the municipality, for the town to utilize that parcel there on the south.
I think it'd be a compromise. That's all I have to say.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Are there any questions of council? No. Is there any other person in the audience deeming themselves to be affected that wishes to be heard this evening? All right, hearing none, declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, item 5C, bylaw 916-18, Place Chaleurs Phase 7. All right, I'll declare the public hearing open, and the hearing is being held in pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act of 2000 as amended. Ms. Winder.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to members of council and the public, the purpose of bylaw 916-18 is to amend the land use bylaw number 796-12 of the town of Beaumont, and in particular Schedule A land use districts map by redistricting a portion of lot 10 and 11 MR, Blocks 5, Plan 152-1520 from PRS Public Recreation Services to C2 Commercial District to a different configuration of PRS Public Recreation Services and C2 Commercial District. Notice of the public hearing in writing was to the applicant, adjacent property owners, applicable agencies, and Leduc County. Public hearing notice was advertised in the local newspaper on June 5th and June 22nd, 2018. Written submissions received are included in the agenda package, and there is nothing to read into the record at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Director of Integrated Growth, once again, Mr. Wong.
Thank you, His Worship, and members of council. This public hearing is actually a continuation of the previous public hearing for bylaw 915-18, which a public hearing was held just now. This redistricting application proposes to rezone the parcel from PRS, Public Recreation Services, and C2 Commercial District to a different configuration of PRS and C2 districts as shown on Schedule A of bylaw 916-18. The purpose of the application is to apply the appropriate zoning to the reconfigured development area. The original municipal reserve parcel will be redistricted from PRS, Public Recreation Services, to C2, while the new MR site in the south portion will be redistricted from C2 to PRS. This proposal would facilitate a more efficient use of land for commercial development, improve the layout of the buildings, and provide for the development of additional small park spaces and seating areas within the parcel. The proposal not only maintains pedestrian connectivity along 30th Avenue, but also aesthetically enhances the pedestrian experience along Highway 625. The administration supports the relocation swap of the MR land and the redistricting application from both from the planning and engineering perspective. As mentioned, we received one submission from the Duke County that they don't have any concern about the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Through your Worship to Mr. Wong. Could you bring us forward to page 46 of 144, please, with the aerial photograph? Thank you. I've noticed a number of occasions I've driven past the storm pond to the west of the area outlined in red. So that's the W-shaped feature on the left of the map. I've driven past that a number of times in the last few months and noticed that large quantities of water are being pumped out of it. So I began to wonder if there was a drainage problem with it, and if we're working to correct that drainage problem, possibly. And if there is a drainage problem, does that have any concerns for the piece of land that we're about to take into reserve?
No, it is my understanding, Councillor, through the mayor, is that the existing stormwater spawn to the west of the current redistricting site, there will be some more work to be done on the site. So at the end of the day, when the neighborhood is developed, the situation will be corrected. That is my understanding of that, because it is still working on it and developing, particularly to the north of the site.
So there are changes being made, and that doesn't have any impact on the.
No, it doesn't.
It's not provincial reserve. What do we call it? Municipal reserve.
Municipal reserve. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. MR. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was there a comment?
I was going to say, your time's coming up.
Very well. Thank you.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to the administration. Mr. Wong, I'm just wondering whether the administration has considered the visibility issue that was brought forward by the adjacent business owner.
The visibility from the
From if that is changed from MR to commercial.
Not really, because like the applicant, when they had a council committee meeting back in March, they showed some of the renderings and drawings to present to council, and they have some site plans and everything. So it will not, because there will only be one small building that is across, but then the majority of the site will be consist of parking areas and also some landscaping areas. So at the end of the day, I believe that it is quite nice in the area. This picture was shown on the March 20th council meeting. Yeah.
So that we do know what is going to be built there, or we don't know at this point?
We
That's
don't know at
too
this
soon.
point for sure, because those are the
It doesn't look very big, but is it big enough for a building right now?
you mean that
That space there, is that potentially could be one
that
large
is
concrete wall?
potential a bay over there, a building there, and on the rendering it is about 270 some square meters. So it is quite not a big size, but it is a fair size of building there. Yeah. So.
If I could ask one follow-up?
And it is, I think it is a two-story building.
The applicant's coming up too.
Yeah, the applicant is here, so.
Okay, well,
yeah.
my follow-up, though, to the administration would be, can you see that we could get the same amount of land and move it? I think your answer was you weren't sure, but that would take some work to figure that out?
Because that will be at the development permit application. So this is the proposal that they are thinking of how they will develop the site at that point of time. But for sure, the applicant will be able to answer that question.
So we'll ask the applicant that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of council for administration? All right, hearing none, is the applicant would like to come up and make a quick presentation or perhaps answer a few questions?
Stephen is not coming.
Thank you, everybody. Maybe just to address the couple of questions that were brought up. To address the councillor's question first, the storm pond that was constructed a couple of years ago in conjunction with 30th Avenue was actually bringing infrastructure forward into a phase that would not otherwise have been constructed until later in the project. And that storm pond to the south actually will connect to the storm pond in the north. As a part of the phase that is underway right now. Grading is underway, and we expect to be doing undergrounds in the next few weeks. But that once that underground servicing is in, that will drain the south pond to the north pond and then into the canal. So that it's not a drainage problem by any stretch. It's that pond is not connected to anything right now. So we're actually pumping it to not have it overflow in the meantime. But once connected, it'll manage itself. To address Mr. LeBlanc's question with respect to visibility, currently his property is leased to the temporary French school, and I think that as the ultimately as the French school vacates to a permanent site, having additional traffic through the area will in fact vastly improve his experience as an owner of that property, as opposed to what the other alternative could be, which is I mean, in a worst case scenario, obviously that property is not developed at all, and given the site challenges, the highest and best use in our view is to have it developed in the way that we've presented, and I think that driving traffic through the site the way that we intend to do will in fact be a benefit for his property. That's obviously my opinion, but that we have thought about that. So.
Thank you. Are there any questions of council for Mr. Kortloff? Hearing none.
I believe Councillor Barnhart had another question that was going to be reserved for me.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the follow-up question was, is there any other way? The map is gone now, but is there any way you could get that same configuration but not have it right in front of his property? Or not the sight line in front of his property?
Not really. I mean, at the end of the day, we need ultimately that span of space in order to achieve a development square foot or footprint that makes sense. It also allows us to provide access to the site from on the westernmost portion up in the northwest corner. It allows us to move that access point a little bit further to the east, which allows us to put, if you recall, we were planning on putting a couple of buildings up against the storm pond with patios to provide some amenity space for those buildings, and it becomes very challenging with the current entry point for that for the site to put that building that would be in the northwest corner with a patio in that far north. So we're kind of jammed, and we can't really move it east, if you will, because of or we can't move the entrance east without that additional space further to the east as well.
And Your Worship, if I may, the other part of that was, do you now know what you're putting there, or are you still developing what might go there? Is there a possibility you could be...
There's a possibility that it could change. I mean, what we have been working with administration on is, and again, this is obviously not the hearing for the development plan specifically, but it is the administration's expectation that what we ultimately deliver is consistent with what we've shown them thus far, and is certainly our intent to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of the bylaw this evening? Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Is there anybody that deems themselves affected that wishes to be heard this evening? All right, hearing none, this public hearing is now closed. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda tonight is registered presentations. We have the Alberta Office of Traffic Safety, Ms. Donatona. Are you?
Good evening, Your Worship and Council, and thank you so much for allowing me to come on behalf of the Office of Traffic Safety with Alberta Transportation to speak with you tonight and introduce us. And also, public, I'd like to thank your your legislative clerk, Ms. Winters, for her kind assistance and making sure that we have the right information for you and that it was on time. I appreciate that. So, good evening and greetings from Director Tom Fowler and Program Manager Colleen Delaney from the Office of Traffic Safety, Alberta Transportation. We're kind of an amazing anomaly within Canada because we're the only Office of Traffic Safety housed under a transportation ministry in Canada, so it's pretty exciting. And Your Worship, if I may be so bold as to pose a question, has anybody from the Office of Traffic Safety ever addressed Beaumont Council?
Not in my time, no. My time, no.
I realize some of your time is short because you're new. Let me be the first to say that I'll be your liaison for the Office of Traffic Safety for the next 5 years, so you will have somebody that can cut through some of the red tape with respect to traffic safety. Is this okay? Awesome, thank you. So just run through a brief presentation for you tonight and kind of let you know what we do. As this is an introductory meeting, we're going to talk about the Office of Traffic Safety, a little bit about the philosophy of Vision Zero, and how Beaumont can start to begin thinking about that if they so choose, the Community Mobilization Program, key resources, and of course, I come bearing free gifts. So I'm hoping that that helps towards the end. I'm leaving it till the end. So just to kind of give you some statistics, the population in Alberta from 2012 to 2016 is up 9.8%. And the number of drivers has increased by 8.9%. And the number of registered vehicles is up by 7.7%. Highway traffic volumes are up 8.4%. So I'm sure you can attest that a few years ago you could jump in your car and be there in 5 minutes. Now you have to plan a little bit because of the volumes. In 2013, we had 2.9 million licensed drivers, and in 2016, we have 3.1 million licensed drivers in this province. We're pleased to report the 2016 stats are out, and of course, I'll send them through to Ms. Winters and yourself, Your Worship, and administration, your CAO. We've dropped in our fatalities from 321 to 294, so it's a drop. It's not perfect, but we are working towards that. In 2015, the social cost of collisions in Alberta was estimated to be between 4.6 and 10.3 billion with a B. And that includes all the healthcare costs, the cost to families, the appliance costs, the rehabilitation costs, the hospital stays, etc. And of course, that cost is extremely high. So part of the reason is we want to be able to do more education and more chatting to get that down. The graph talks about the combined fatal and major injury collision rate per 100,000 population, and you can see that in 2001 it was 85 per 100,000. In 2007 was at its highest at 91.5. And the Office of Traffic Safety Community Mobilization Program was started in 2008, and it's been a steady decline to 2016 at 63.4. I'd like to be able to come back next year and say it was 20%, but we're hoping we can steadily drop it. Where we also don't know exactly why that is, the formula, it's just taking a look at all the information from policing and from all the stat providers. But we do like the fact that it's gone down, and one thing is clear, that our Office of Traffic Safety does not rely on best practices at all. We rely on good practices, because there's always something to change, there's always something new to do, and there's always a better way of doing things. And best practices have a way of saying, we've got it, we've done it, we're good, and it's never completely done. The Office of Traffic Safety, we look at a philosophy called Vision Zero. And Vision Zero is not owned by anyone, it's not trademarked by anyone, and there's a lot of communities practicing this particular philosophy. It started in Sweden and in Europe. Some of you are probably familiar perhaps with it, and it was designed to reduce traffic fatalities and reduce very, very serious collisions. In fact, some of the concepts in Europe, they don't allow tractor trailers to pass each other at certain times of the day. They have to convoy through rush hour traffic and so forth. So that's just kind of one of the philosophies. Also, with the amount of roundabouts that Europe has, of course, it's a little intimidating here in Alberta, I'm sure, but there'll be probably more roundabouts coming as we start to look at that. Basically, the philosophy of Vision Zero talks about 0 deaths and 0 injuries on Alberta's roads. And zero is, it would be nice if it was the actual zero, but what we want to do is significantly reduce people's thinking patterns to a more safe manner. And that we don't accept that fatalities and serious injuries on our roads are inevitable or acceptable. You don't jump in your vehicle and expect to go out and be hurt or have catastrophic vehicle damage when you go driving, and we want to make sure everyone's safe. So the Vision Zero talks about a system in which safe decisions are the easiest to make. And just to give you kind of an example, another example, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube video of they decided to see which vehicles were safer, and so they took I think it was a 67 or 68 Bel Air, for those of you that are old car buffs. They put a dummy in it and they crashed it at a certain speed into a barrier. The engine came right out of the car, through the windshield, into the back seat, and the dummy was declared dead. They took a newer model, I think 10 or 15 or 20 years newer, did that same crash test, and the crash cages, of course, saved that particular crash test dummy, and catastrophic injuries were not as serious, broken leg, broken collarbone, so to speak, when they did the assessment. If we look at our newer vehicles nowadays, they're made to keep us safer. They're made to be censored, and of course my husband and I just bought a 2018 Silverado, and I'm pretty sure I could sit in the back seat and that thing would drive itself, although it's a little terrifying when the HUD comes up on the windshield saying wildlife, wildlife, and you're freaking out. So it's a little crazy. The systems approach to Vision Zero encompasses all these things. And we encourage municipalities to think about it, and part of my role is to help you brainstorm or help you think about it. And for example, one of the things you're already practicing with Vision Zero here in Beaumont that you probably weren't aware is your wayfinding signs and your traffic signs. It's very easy to get around Beaumont. We can see them. As the population is aging, a lot of municipalities have the very small wayfinding signs, and you can't see them until you're on top of them. You just have to go to other municipalities to see that, larger ones. But you do have a great wayfinding system, and it's easy to get around in your municipality, and I was looking for that tonight. So you're already practicing Vision Zero and didn't even know it. But we talk about safe road users, nobody impaired on anything, including over-the-counter medication or cough syrup or anything like that. They don't jump in a vehicle to go calm down after a fight at home. That's not a good way to drive, and it's not a very good way to drive fatigued or tired as well. So we'd like safe road users, and that's part of education. Of course, safe vehicles are becoming safer and safer, which is nice to see. Not sure I'm ever going to give up control of a vehicle, though, and have someone drive me, and maybe when I'm 95, that might be okay. Safe speed. The 2016 statistics tell us that speed does kill, contrary to what a lot of folks think, is the faster you go, the safer you are. And of course, any engineers in the room will tell you that our road system was designed at a certain way, at a certain speed, at a certain time ago. And there's only so much that road can take for speed. And of course, safe infrastructure. And municipalities are part of this too, as they're building roads, as you're changing streetlights, as you're changing lighting. It's all part of being safe. And that's kind of the holistic philosophy of a safe system. So just introducing it to you at a high level. Our community mobilization team, I'm the team lead of 5 other consultants, and we are provincial. So my portfolio is industry and municipalities, and it keeps me quite busy. And it's a lot of fun, actually. And our job, we want to mobilize the communities in Alberta to achieve traffic safety awareness and achieve Vision Zero. In other words, that philosophy of awareness. Our outcomes are to encourage shared responsibility so that when municipalities have a committee that they want to do some traffic safety initiatives with, that they involve the entire community. And we do have some pretty big industry coalitions starting up in northern Alberta as well. Shell taking the lead in Grand Prairie, that they want to introduce traffic safety and their driving programs to communities at their own initiative. So that's pretty good. Build community capacity to address safety priorities. So anything you do in Beaumont is going to be awesome with us because it makes sense for your community. So we don't dictate what you do, and we just celebrate what you do. And of course, inspire and enable collective action to improve safety. Now, just to let you know how you can get a hold of us, that is my email at the top, Community Mobilization. These are my business cards. I'll leave with Miss Winter. I think I have the biggest business cards in Alberta, so I'll leave you those with her. Are you aware, Your Worship, of the Traffic Safety Fund?
No, I'm not.
Okay. We do have a grant program, and we encourage you to apply for it, and it's not matching. It's not a hard grant to fill out, and if you're talking about traffic safety or traffic education, we would love to have a grant from Beaumont. And the next call for grants will be the end of August for the fall session. Our grants are $10,000 for the small grant, $25,000 for the large grant, and I'm certainly available to work with your administration or yourselves to think about some ideas about what you might want to do. And it's a great grant. A lot of communities have applied for it with a lot of very, very cool initiatives, to which I brought an example of one tonight. If you need to get a hold of us at the grant, that's the email there, and our website is saferoads.com. It's brand new, so it's in the development stages. So here's what I'm bringing for you, complimentary. Quite a few years ago, you may have seen this campaign, When Eyes Lock, It's Safe to Walk, and it's been on billboards in Edmonton, Calgary, etc. And our director said, it's had its focus groups, it's been tested, it has been around the province, and when the campaign was over, the creative goes away. And so our director said, you know what, let's let this out to communities, to municipalities, to nonprofits, to industry, complimentary to you. All we need is if you're going to put your logo on it, or you have community groups that want to put their logo on it, we just need to have you send it in to us. We'll release all the creative to you. You can print it off in posters, cards, anything you want to do that makes sense for your community. And we have the 3 creative on this one, the brown, green, and blue eyes. And kids really resonate with this because of the eyes. They can understand that I have to look. It's good for seniors, and it's a really good pedestrian safety campaign. So that's the first creative that's available to you. Second one, and there's more coming. These are the ones that have been released so far. So your communications folks and IT folks will be able to get that loaded for you. These are intersection creative, and the tagline for this is every bad habit collides in an intersection. We have a huge problem in our statistics with stop signs. And in the rural areas, when you blow a stop sign, the fatality rate is very high. In the city, the injury rate is very high, or in an urban municipality. And so we want to bring people's awareness to the importance of stop signs. They're not just there to add some color to the landscape. So these are kind of fun, and you can use them any way you see fit. Now here's an example on the left of Cold Lake. They decided to wrap all their bus shelters with When Eyes Lock, It's Safe to Walk, and the bus shelters that were closer to crosswalks. And Stony Plain right now is looking at putting some of this in right inside their transit buses. And so it's been a very, very good campaign. And Cold Lake looked at us and asked if they could change the message a little bit, because the original message was the safest system invented was your eyes. And they said, people aren't going to understand that, or it's not going to resonate with folks. And they said, we want to use When Eyes Lock, It's Safer to Walk. And we said, you know what, that's a great idea. The one next to it is Park Your Steed, and for those of you that may be a little bit nervous in the gallery tonight, there is a Calgary Flames logo on there. It's don't hurt me. Go Riders. Anyway, we used it in conjunction with the Calgary Flames in December, and it was put through the Saddle Dome. They used it in the big Jumbotron along the ribbon. Our booths were there. We're in current discussions with the Edmonton Eskimos, the Edmonton Oilers, and we're looking at the Oil Kings and the Hitmen and so forth. We currently have just signed a rodeo champion to be the spokesperson for this campaign, and those of you that follow rodeo, Mr. Chance Butterfield is our sponsor for this. He's agreed to lend his name to this, so you'll see his trailer going up and down the roads. He is a bulldogger, and he's the cowboy that almost died in High Prairie last year by being kicked by a horse, and he's come back full-time, and he believes in this, and he's just an amazing, amazing pro rodeo athlete. So you can use these any way you want. I have copies here that are in postcards. What a lot of folks do is if you're having a community event and you're selling tickets, you attach this to the ticket and say, you know what, as long as this is in your dash, we won't tow your vehicle the next morning. If you pick it up by 11, we don't want you to drive. So Calgary Stampede is using it, and a few others. So it's pretty good. Our contacts for the creative files, this is the email for your administrative team. For community mobilization, you can get me anytime, and I know a lot of councils and administration test this. And I was in Coaldale yesterday talking to council, and I said, I will answer it no matter what time it is. I pride on a 4-hour response. I got back to the office at 10 o'clock last night, and there was already an email, and I responded to it before midnight. So I got the message this morning, what were you doing responding to that? So we're very responsive. You can get me anytime there. Alberta Traffic Safety Fund is that next email, and of course, any other queries or questions. We also will have a stats link that when I send my thank you letter to you, I'll send that to Ms. Winters and to Your Worship and to your CAO. So without further ado, Your Worship, that concludes my delegation, and I will stand down at your discretion for questions.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, this is some really interesting stuff. I've never seen some of these things before. But let's get back to grants for a second. I like free money, especially money I don't have to match. What are some projects that have been considered in the past that we might be considering here in Beaumont?
Your Worship, a lot of education campaigns, so children's pedestrian campaigns. Some municipalities, for example, Kalmar is looking at buying a Class 7 kit that we have that the Swan Hills library system produces and that your library system could order. It has everything in it for tutoring the new GDL Class 7 kids, and it's a really good kit. There's the bus shelter wraps, there's vehicle wraps. Some municipalities have put messages on their vehicles. There are speed boards that have been ordered, and as long as there's a traffic safety initiative with it. We have bike rodeos where they're changing it from being in an arena to they give the kids the rules and then they take them out for a ride around town so they can practice it, just like a driving test, which is awesome. There's, of course, the party program, although in northern Alberta, my old region was Region 9 north of Peace River and up to the border, and they call it trauma drama because it's a little different up there. People have to drive great distances between High Level, Rainbow Lake, etc. There's those types of things. We're currently partially funding the new study with Leduc with the enhanced enforcement on the Serpentine. They want to find out if that makes sense. So they've responded to a grant. Peace officer contingents have applied for grants so that they can do more things in the schools with the kids, be more aware out there with them. We have community groups that have said we want to educate our community leagues, our community groups about traffic safety. So that's just off the top of my head.
That's a lot. Sounds like you're pretty much we can think it up, we can get a grant.
Absolutely.
As long as it has a traffic safety motive.
You bet. I'm happy to consult with you on that. And my services are complimentary.
Awesome. We appreciate that. Other questions from members of council? Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had two questions, and you answered the first one for me on the grants, so thank you for that. And not your first rodeo answering grant questions, I take it. You had it down pat very well. Thank you very much. Actually, more of a comment is for administration. Can we possibly, when the eyes lock, safer to walk, creative, could that be put onto our electronic sign? I'm not sure that the other posters can, but could that maybe be explored by administration to see if we could, with council's approval, of course, administration, to have the eyes locking on the community electronic sign? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Downlock through Mayor Stewart. Certainly we can look into that. I glanced down and saw some heads nodding. Whether that meant we could look into it or whether it will work, we'll find out. Okay. Deal. Thank you.
I think, Your Worship, that would be awesome through to Councillor Danlock and to the CAO. That would be awesome on the electronic board. We'd be fine with that.
Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, and thank you to the presenter. Question on engineering and engineering standards. There must be a review happening throughout, especially in the rural areas, with respect to where we have a range road that butts right into, say, a Highway 16, Highway 14, and then there's simply a stop sign, hoping that people will obey the sign and not travel directly on. In Europe, typically what they do is they dogleg before you get to the highway. And you have to hang a right, have to hang a left. There's a ditch between you and the highway if you want to go straight. And it seems that's a real practical solution to a lot of people that are just blowing the stop signs and encountering other vehicles and deadly accidents. So is there any engineering standards being reviewed for, say, the rural areas?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Hendricks. I won't say that I'm not aware. I can talk to our chief engineer in the Office of Traffic Safety or in transportation because I'm not bridges and roads. I do know that is a practice in Europe because that's part of the whole Vision Zero practice. I'm not sure exactly how many counties have commingling engineering standards, but I will ask that question and I will give you an answer on that. I appreciate your question, sir.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barnhart.
Since we're asking the kind of questions that I have on my mind, I thought I'd maybe ask this one. Thank you, Your Worship. Infrastructure related, is there a standard for how large the shoulder has to be on a highway? Let's say on 510, that's a secondary highway. Are there any requirements? Because I find it a real safety hazard when someone crosses over that middle line and you've got nowhere to go.
Your Worship, to Councillor Barnhart, there are engineering standards for every road that's built. What I can do is find out, there may be different engineering standards for different camber and calibers of roads. I'm not sure. So what I will do is find that information from our engineer. I'll get back to you through my letter. I appreciate the question. Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Van Newkirk, a question not on engineering standards?
That's right.
Thank you.
Through yourself to the presenter, thank you for the information tonight. One of the safety pieces that my little guys have liked is Safety City, and just wondering around the, I guess, twofold, does the group you represent work alongside Safety City, or is that separate? And the second part would be, as far as grants go, is there a grant available or a portion of a grant that could be crafted to have children from Beaumont gain access to Safety City?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Van Nieuwerk. Right?
Van Newkirk.
Van Newkirk.
Yeah.
My apologies, sir.
No problem.
First of all, we work with a lot of different safety cities as a liaison perspective. Grand Prairie, Medicine Hat, Edmonton, and there's a couple others in the province. They're very good. Mm-hmm. And yes, if you wanted some of your children to go and experience Safety City because you're in a smaller municipality, you could certainly put that in the grant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, seeing no further questions. Thank you very much. Your presentation tonight was very, very informative. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure, and I look forward to getting to know you more as the years go on. Thank you, sir. And with your permission, I'll just drop these off at the ledge.
Please.
Thank you.
Okay, so we get to the item 6B on our agenda, unregistered presentations. This is the portion of our meeting where we open up the mic for citizens of Beaumont to come and address council. Just as a quick reminder, this is not really set up to be a town hall. If we can answer quick questions, we will. If they're long questions, we'll take some notes in administration and we'll get back to you. Is there anybody wishing to address council this evening? Come on down. Just as a general reminder, please sign in on a sheet of paper, state your name for the record, and then you have 5 minutes.
My name is Susan Whitbeck. I live at 5325 56A Street here in Beaumont. And I'm here just to address a concern I have with our growing town. We have a number of young and capable individuals who are struggling to find meaningful work here in Beaumont. We have several people living in our community with intellectual and physical disabilities who have the necessary skills and capabilities, but unfortunately are not able to achieve success in gaining full-time employment within their own community. Oftentimes we're looking into Leduc and into Edmonton as a result. I'm here to bring this to the attention of our council and town members, as well as to provide some reasons that I think this is something that needs to change within our growing community. I work as a teacher in Edmonton in inclusive services, but I also work as a community support worker with an organization called Winder Inclusive Services, otherwise known as WICS. They are out of Sherwood Park. They support individuals living with intellectual disabilities to be included in their communities in meaningful and worthwhile ways. Part of our work involves providing on-the-job supports as well as assisting employers and employees in job carving to provide services and skills to those individuals to find lasting and meaningful work. We have been very successful in other surrounding communities such as Leduc, Sherwood Park, and within the city of Edmonton, but we still have yet to find many gainful employments here within our own community. I have a sister who is looking to move out to join us here in Alberta. She comes from Ontario, but I'm struggling with the possibilities for her here within the community of Beaumont. She is a very organized woman who loves working with children and animals. However, she has autism and epilepsy. And if I am struggling to find individuals work where they are getting job carving skills and employment skills here in town already, I'm having great difficulty in bringing her from an area where she has these possibilities to a town here. I have written to the chamber as well as to the mayor without success as of yet as to some assistance and some more possibilities. So I'm hoping that with speaking to council that you guys might be able to point me in a more positive direction. I'd like to work with you guys to help our individuals and our town become a more inclusive and joint community. So I'd just like to talk to you briefly about some of the reasons that are benefits to hire people with intellectual and physical disabilities in the community. So number one, people living with a disability are as capable as everyone else. The problem with this is that 64% of Canadians living with physical and intellectual disabilities are struggling with unemployment or part-time employment. Like anyone else, people who with disabilities apply for jobs they feel they have the skills and the success to meet. And it's up to us not to lower the standard, but to allow them a chance to meet the standards and the expectations of the job force. A supervisor who can successfully manage anyone in their community is able to successfully manage somebody with an intellectual or a physical disability. A second reason is people with disabilities are reliable employees. They have a high job retention rate. And in a study by Beaumont and York Council in 2013, they found that 85% of its employees with disabilities rated higher than average job retention and job absences or success. Once they find a job that suits their skill level, people with disabilities tend to stay longer and receive more success. They develop the skills, do it better, and are happier to stay in that gainful employment. Workers living with disabilities increase the diversity in the workplace. Everyone benefits from a diverse workforce, and this is something we've seen culturally throughout the decades as our workforce has changed, from including more women in the workforce to different cultures and community members. A diverse workforce helps everybody. We all benefit from changing and adapting and synergizing to work together. People with disabilities want to be there, and they continue to improve with supports as well as with their own skills. They want to do well, and they will ask questions and develop their skills to improve as an employee within the community. In other communities that have worked towards diversifying their employment, we've found that it provides a change for the better. The employee feels supported, the employer is getting the work they desire and the skills they wish to have, and they found that they are a more favorable company in the eyes of consumers as well. So it shines on them to see that they are doing these things as well. So one of the big issues in not hiring these individuals is the myths that go behind it. They aren't able to do the skills. Well, the myth is actually false. People with intellectual and physical disabilities are just as capable as we are, and they often have the job carving and the desired skills that they have worked and developed over time. They have possibility of community support members like myself who would go into the job force with them, help them to learn the skills, and then our job is to wean ourselves out as we're no longer needed in the employment. If it's something where they would be needed continual support, those supports are then provided. Another myth is that considerable expense and accommodations are required for those individuals to be a part of the workforce. In fact, many people with disabilities, be them physical or intellectual disabilities, require no special accommodations, and you are able to attain many grants from the government to assist you in providing accommodations if they are necessary. Both the Alberta government and our federal government are great at providing a number of different grants and supports to help with the development of this. So I'm here to help change our views of intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities to help enlighten and bring about more change within our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming in to present tonight. We do appreciate it. Council will take it under advisement as we move forward. Have you tried to connect with our FCS department or with the chamber?
We have. Both myself and my supervisor with Winder Inclusive Services have sent letters to the Chamber of Council with no replies whatsoever, and they've been months apart. I sent a letter a second time and still received no reply, and I attached the first letter in my email to say I haven't returned a reply from this one. Here is my second letter. I'm inquiring further as to what we can do. Oftentimes our community members have simply been told, no, we don't have anything, you wouldn't be able to work here.
Was that the chamber or FCSS?
No, just right here in town at employment shops and businesses, but I have not contacted your FCA.
That might be your next step, because that department really does that sort of social services side of the house thing, and I'm sure that Shalane or Ms. Winder can get you in contact or get you the contact info and see where we can go.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time this evening, Council.
Thank you very much.
And your worship.
Oop.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Just a question on the...
Ma'am?
Sorry.
Thank you. Question on a group called the Blue Heron Support Association out of Barhead.
Okay.
Have you contacted them?
I do not.
Are you familiar with them at all?
No.
Okay. I have worked with them in the past.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if you could have a look at their model and see if that's the model you're looking for to physically do the same thing here in Beaumont. At least then we've got the goalposts for how you plan to move forward with this. And then perhaps FCSS could then talk to Blue Heron to see that they've been down this road. They're very active in the province in this very area. So great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to address council tonight? Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council members. My name is Jeff Wotherspoon, 4005 49th Avenue, Beaumont, resident since 1979. Please forgive my public speaking skills. Everyone has a paralyzing fear. Mine is public speaking. What I'm here to talk to you about tonight is clean plants. I'm looking for Beaumont to make a move to protect our urban forest by instructing administration to immediately make changes to the construction requirements, that all trees and shrubs planted currently on municipal property and future owned municipal properties, such as new subdivisions, boulevards, parks, are to come from a clean plant certified nursery. If they can prove that they have failed to locate the plants from at least two of the closest clean plant nurseries, that non-certified plants would then be accepted. There's no additional cost to Beaumont or the developers for clean plants. I can speak from experience that us at Cheyenne Tree Farms do not charge more for clean plants versus regular plants. There's a list of clean plant certified nurseries in the Canadian Nursery Landscape Association website. What are clean plants? Clean plants come from a clean plant certified nursery. What is a clean plant certified nursery? A clean plant certified nursery adheres to a systematic plant inspection of traceability of plants. We inspect a certain percentage of plants on a weekly basis. and 100% of our plants on a monthly basis. We can trace all our plants forward and backwards, right from who our original supplier was, if we struck our own cuttings, through the entire process. We have spray records. We have external people come out and help us with our inspection process. We go through 2 internal audits a year on our systems, and we also have external auditors come out and inspect our systems. And this is all for control and monitoring of pests, both restricted and non-restricted pests. Where did clean plants come from? Clean plants came because of a problem that happened in British Columbia about 9 or 10 years ago. A disease called Pyrmore moved into BC from California. This particular pest attacked a number of species of plants, and it got so bad that CFIA actually quarantined 2 nurseries and shut down borders for plant material movement. So out of that, there became a program called DPCP, or Domestic Phytosanitary Certification Program, and from that morphed the Clean Plant Certification Program, which is CFIA endorsed and industry run and accepted. Any nursery can become a Clean Plant Certified nursery. They just have to first create their module, have it approved by CFIA, and then they must to adhere to all the policies needed. What will clean plants mean to a municipality? Clean plants is sort of like an insurance policy. It will help you to reduce the risk to your urban forest by ensuring that all plants planted on municipal properties have undergone an inspection process to limit the risk of invasive pests moving in and destroying many species of plants. If Beaumont had required clean plants, elm scale would not have moved into the town of Beaumont about 4 years ago. It was brought in on infected plants from southern Alberta. It will probably cost Beaumont thousands of dollars to eradicate, because under one of the documents I've given you, it's going to show you that, actually I might have only given yourself, Mayor Stewart, and I have a copy for administration. The European elm scale moved into the city of Lethbridge in 2016. The city addressed that it's going to cost them $550,000 for injections to try to eradicate the pest within their municipality. We could have prevented that completely from even entering our town if we'd only been asking for clean plant certified plants only on municipal properties. There are many assets to the municipality, trees have a lot of assets to the municipality. They sequester carbon, which is a big buzzword within the provincial and federal governments. They moderate heat during the day by shading the roofs and sidewalks and slowly release the heat at night. They help to filter snow and slow down rainwater. They help to filter the air we breathe. They reduce noise. There was a study done, and you'll have another document on this in here, that talks that for every $1 invested in planting trees, there's a $2.25 return to taxpayers, or to people per year. It also helps with visual aesthetics of the community. You need to ask yourself, what's the cost to remove and replace the town's inventory if a pest moves in? And it's not just in dollars, it's in years and quality of life. So there's a number of documents I've added in with you with different studies from different people. Toronto says that their tree canopy is $7 billion. We need to do everything we can to protect our environment and protect our canopies. We are especially concerned at the tree nursery with development happening both in Dancero Meadows and in the new Elan area, that if they're bringing in plants that are not certified from a certified clean plant from a certified nursery, what's going to happen if they bring a pest into that community that's then going to hop the fence into our nurseries? Essentially we all know that trees are good. We know that planting more trees is good. We want to protect our current inventory. The best proactive approach to pest management is a clean plants approach. I also feel that requiring developers in the zero lot line areas to plant more trees in their parks to accommodate the fact that the smaller lots are going to have less trees, less grass, that are going to sequester less carbon and so forth. Any questions about clean plants? It's a topic that I've been approaching the past council. I've talked to past administration, past people in parks, and everybody seems to nod their head. They're on board with it, but it never seems to go anywhere. And I've been told that you guys are redesigning your construction standards, but is it going to be too late if it's put in 4 months' time, but development permits have been passed for the new subdivisions adjoining our properties? Is it going to be too late for us?
I got to be honest.
There are communities that are already requiring clean plants. City of Calgary is one, Okotoks is one, I believe Red Deer is one, Banff is one. The City of Leduc 3 years ago, I believe it's just on current owned property within the City of Leduc needs to be clean plants because plants are brought in with disease, and the person in charge of park said it's not going to be my problem. He made them remove them and said we now only want clean plants on our properties. So there are other municipalities are requiring this. There is no cost, as I mentioned to yourself or the developers. Being a clean plant certified nursery, we have to be competitive with a non-certified nursery, so our pricing is the same. We swallow the cost. And if you're worried about not being able to find the plants, as I mentioned, if the contractors can prove they've looked for these particular plants in the 2 closest certified nurseries, they still can't find them, then you have a clause that says that, okay, now we will allow you to bring in non-certified plants as long as you're visually inspecting for the pests or possible pests.
Well, we do appreciate your presentation tonight, and I know it's something new to me. We'll take it under advisement as we move forward, and we'll refer it back to our administration to do a little research, and then perhaps get back to council on it. Great, thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to address council this evening?
Taking your sign-in sheet.
Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else in the audience tonight wishing to address members of council? All right. Hearing none, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Oops. All right. Next item on our agenda, item 7A, swearing in of our new deputy mayor, Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to members of council and the public. This evening we'll be swearing in Councillor Barnhart as deputy mayor for the term effective of July 1st, 2018 until February 28th, 2019. This is based on the schedule that was set out and confirmed at the organizational meeting held earlier this year. I'd like to thank Councillor Hendricks for being the last deputy mayor. Thank you.
Good job.
Without further ado, I will ask Councillor Barnhart to come to the flag so we can take the official oath.
Well, I hope we're going to get a photo of this, but...
I, Kathy Barnhart, do swear that I will diligently, faithfully, and to the best of my ability execute according to law the office of Deputy Mayor for the town of Beaumont from July 1st, 2019 to February 28th, 2019. So help me God.
Excuse me. All right. Next item on our agenda this evening, probably the one big item we have tonight, is the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 next steps discussion. Mr. Hills. Oh, sorry, Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Worship, to members of council. Before Mr. Hiltz gets into his presentation, I just wanted to bring to council and the public's attention some information that we've just discovered. Back in June 18th, we had the special meeting of council where council looked at a number of strategic items and had asked administration to do some preliminary research and bring back a report in September. One of those items was to look at the servicing requirements for a potential business park in our currently unserviced land, or for lack of a better definition, our recently annexed land. So we've done that, and today we received some information on those costs. They don't affect administration's recommendation, but we felt that it would be extremely valuable that you had that information. So we looked at 3 potential areas for a business park, and again, setting context, back on June 18th, we were asked to come up with some costs of servicing. There's a whole bunch of variables that come into play, as in who's a landowner, who's a developer, and so on. But in order to get basic services to any of those 3 areas, we're looking at about $13 million. That's not a number far off than I believe the previous council was using when they were walking through this process, and it's not a number that we did not expect. So what that gives you is water and wastewater stubs, if you will, to the annexed land. If you look at the 3 different areas to fully service them with water and wastewater, you're looking at anywhere between $55 million and in some cases $70 million. Now, those are typically developers' costs, unless the town was to choose to become the developer, which we would strongly urge us not to become the developer. But we thought we would share that information. So, preliminary to start up a business park, our in-costs are going to be about $13 million to get water and wastewater to any of those 3 sites. So I just thought I'd pass that along to council. Again, it does not affect the administration's recommendation, and Mr. Hiltz will carry on with his report and tell you why. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's handy information to keep in the back of our minds as we debate budget items. Mr. Hiltz.
Okay, well, thank you, Your Worship. Members of council, before you today we have the report on the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 approval process and next steps in the process. Basically, over the past 3 years, this item has come before councils and committees of the wholes and governance priority committees, etc., on numerous occasions. And at the May 15th Committee of the Whole meeting, elected officials received a report that did highlight some various funding options of moving this project forward. So before you today, we have the option of applying the MSI, or portion of the gas tax. I'll go first with the gas tax. We have basically just over $1 million per year that we can apply in gas tax funding through 23-24. At that point, the gas tax would need to be renewed through the federal government, and at this time we do not have any information if that will happen or not, but in all likelihood it would, because it has gone through renewals in the past. Beaumont also has the opportunity to apply municipal sustainability initiative funding, and a portion of that funding in that is right now with the Alberta government and can be applied to this type of project as well. Both of these options have recently become available to Beaumont because the MSI was front-loaded for a year, and gas tax can now be applied to long-term interest costs. Other funding options and opportunities would be through Leduc County. They remain interested in the project. However, they are not able to give us an answer at this time of any proposed funding. This would also go with any other grants that are available, but we will continue to work towards achieving either through partnerships, sponsorships, or any other grants that become available in the future. And partly with the grants and things like that, any of the unused portion of a project that is applied, we'd be able to apply for a grant that becomes available, and as I stated before, any unused portion you'd be able to utilize that grant funding to cover that. So we have a 20-month window during the construction process to continue to apply for grants for this project. Beaumont's borrowing capacity at this time is $42 million. Last fall or last year when we were talking about it, we thought there was a 75-25 split where it was 25 million that we'd be able to access without provincial approval, or 25 or 39,000 with provincial approval. The province does not have does not have a stipulation anymore in 75-25, and we can assess the full $42 million for that. At the June 19th Committee of the Whole meeting, BR2 Architects presented a proposal for project construction. It's in two parts. The first part is engaging a construction manager process and award is a stipulated fixed sum project. And part two, it's a 20-month construction project. This actually benefits us moving forward in two ways. One, it would allow us to do a phase one, which is the construction manager process. We'd be able to get a fixed sum project or price for the project that can be brought forward to council again in mid-October. Council can get clarity on the price and to make a final decision on moving forward. The second benefit to this is that they'd be able to put in the foundations and any piling before winter frost, which comes in at about February, March, and also too then they'd be able to do the steel construction over the winter, saving any proposed heating costs through the 2018-2019 year. Throughout this process, we have done numerous public engagement processes, and within your package, the Beaumont Amateur Hockey Association has provided a letter of support, and further, Beaumont Soccer Association has just recently provided a letter of support that is not in your package, however, is in your mail slots in the back. So we've received from two of our user groups stating that they support the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 moving forward. In terms of costings and things like that, and we propose, these are still in the proposal and in the proposed framework. Is that, for example, by applying the federal gas tax funding and MSI funding to the project over the first 5 years of the project, we'll be looking at about $120 per year for tax. At the year 2021, when the Ken Nickel debt is retired on that construction project, we can apply about $203,000 to the project. That would drop that to $88.52. As I stated earlier in the presentation, we do not know at the 2024 kind of time period what's the future will hold with the federal gas tax. We are confident it would be maintained. However, there are other options and opportunities through using growth, using other debt retirement, etc., that we would be able to make up that difference towards this project to keep it as very accessible for the single-family residential homeowner in Beaumont. So basically what we're kind of looking at today for recommendations, we have two recommendations. The Council directs administration to engage BR2 Architecture to initiate the construction manager process for the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 project as outlined in this report. And the second recommendation was that Council further directs the administration to bring back the final construction cost and construction process prior to beginning the construction of the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 project. So I'll open it to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the report tonight. So just to get discussion started, I'm prepared to move the first recommendation that Council directs administration to engage BR2 Architecture to initiate the construction manager process for the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 project as outlined in the report. And I got a couple of comments because I know back when we were talking during budget, we had discussed getting grants from other orders of government, federally, provincially, the county. Those negotiations, Council has not, for the members of the public, Council has not been idle in that respect. We've been out and we've been lobbying and we've been negotiating, and those negotiations are going very well. I'm not really at liberty to sit there and discuss them in detail this evening, but they've been going very well, and I'm confident that we're going to see some funds come through in the next 6 months to a year. One of the reasons that I'm sort of leaning towards getting this process started is with a background in construction. If we hit that October in the ground deadline, it's going to work well for our project, as well as the market's starting to heat up. Construction costs are going to go up, and if we don't get in there now, waiting for grants, if we get $2, $3 million, $5 million in grants, a good large portion of that could be eaten up in cost increases and cost overruns that were unforeseen due to labor and material increases. So those are my initial thoughts on it. I'm sure I'll have more to say as we go on, but is there discussion from members of council or questions of administration? That's saying you're not going to go. Councillor Moncalfe-Swain.
I was going to wait for Mr. Hendricks. This is kind of his baby here, but he wasn't. Maybe he's waiting for the last word. So, all right. Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a very important project for our community, obviously, and I'm reminded that today's vote is focused on the financial options, and my questions will be focused on that. But I do have some comments about the project itself. It's been a while since we discussed this during budget and had a lot of engagement with residents, so I'll make some comments about it. Firstly, I'm reminded daily that despite our rapid growth, we haven't built an ice sheet in our town for about 17 years, I think. Some of our kids are having to leave town to play soccer, lacrosse, hockey, all those sports. We're relying on our schools right now to provide gymnasium space at varying levels of success, and our kids are crying out for things to do around town. Our community groups find it very hard to find space in meetings. To me, being part of a livable community means that our residents are able to practice and play in our own community. So we need to ensure that our residents have those services and facilities in town, but also we need to look at how we're attracting people moving forward. If I'm a young family looking to move to a new community and do some research and find out that the hockey program, for example, is looking at capping teams at different levels or not being able to provide all levels, I'm going to look elsewhere. So we need to make sure that we're looking after our current residents, but also the future growth that we're looking for in our annex lands. I also want to acknowledge and show my appreciation for the letters of support that were sent in from both the Beaumont Hockey Association and the Beaumont Soccer Association. I've had several other conversations with other user groups who do support this as well. However, I also want to acknowledge that this doesn't solve all the needs in our community, far from it. My support on this project, what I mentioned during budget time, is conditioned on a few things, and ensuring that we continue to plan for all our recreational needs is on top of that list. So I'm happy to see the recreational master plan is going to be coming in front of council, and essentially that is going to provide a 10-year plan for all of our recreation needs, which ensures that we don't just build this now and then forget about it going forward and have another long gap between we build any facilities. So I think this project is great, and I welcome it. It's going to be a welcome addition to Beaumont. However, $29.5 million is a lot of money. I'm happy to see both provincial and federal grants can be applied to this project. But despite being a great project and the needs, we also have a duty to be fiscally responsible for the taxpayers. So I got really 4 key questions today, and you can cut me off whenever you want. I can go one by one, or you can share the love. I'm okay. You let me know the process.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll give you one, and then we'll see if other council wants to speak.
Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you. The first question, and you kind of addressed it, but I wanted to bring it up again, that residents are concerned that the province isn't really providing funding outside of those outside of the MSI, and so the new infrastructure grant that was signed back in April between the federal government and the provincial government, it was a $3.3 billion grant, and recreation was in there, and despite the fact that we were invited to apply, it looks like we're now not able to do that on that stream. And so you've indicated that you've had several meetings with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and who is obviously our local MLA, Shay Anderson. So can you provide an overview of where we're at in terms of securing funding beyond MSI for this project? I know you touched on it, but just what else? What are we doing here outside of MSI project from a provincial level?
I'll be honest, I really don't have much more information to share other than the fact that we are continuing to meet with the minister and put pressure on him in conjunction with other municipalities to get that grant structure or grant stream opened up, and we will continue to do so. But as those negotiations go on, they're unfortunately not available to the public at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to keep going until you tell me to stop.
You've had your one.
Thank you.
Is there other members of council that wish to speak tonight? And we'll come back to Councillor Moncalfe-Swain. We'll get all 4 in.
That's fine.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Sure, I'll go. Thanks. Through your worship to administration and the public. So when I was elected, the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 project had been approved already, subject to grants during the budget deliberations. During my campaign, my stance was that we couldn't use almost all of our borrowing limit, which at the time was said to be $25 million, with an increase available to $39 million with provincial approval. And there wasn't enough money to do the project we needed to do. It was a very hard project to stand up there and support at that point. I wasn't sure the provincial government would approve an increase. But as we heard from administration and as we've learned, based on provincial borrowing limit changes, our current borrowing limit is $42 million, and the cost of the facility under one of the current scenarios that we're going to see here comes down to $26.65 million, so leaving $15.35 million of borrowing room. It's enough math now. Our community needs a recreation solution. Part of this solution is the construction of the Aqua-Fit 2 facility. The other part of this solution is a commitment to the recreation master plan and working closely with our arts and sports user groups in Beaumont along the way. Council has received written letters of support from the Beaumont Amateur Hockey Association representing their about 700 youth, as well as the Beaumont Soccer Association representing approximately 900 youth in the two programs, both indoor and outdoor. I'd be remiss to also not point out that these letters both indicated that they would wish to be part of the recreational planning process moving forward, and I think that's a very important piece of it. We've heard from BR2 architects that the current timeline works well with quality construction timing. Anyone who knows me well knows that I'm all about quality. If you're doing something, you want to do it right. I don't want to be going back into a project because corners were cut, or we hear later that there were issues with this or that because of funding decisions, or we all know the cost of retrofitting things into buildings after the fact is always way more. I want to be as heads up as we can moving into this project, and based on the conversation we had with BR2 last week, I'm confident that that's where we're at. If Council supports the funding of the Aqua-Fit 2 tonight, our work doesn't end. We must continue to lobby the provincial government to support our shovel-ready recreational facility, as they have done for other communities in the past. Personally, I was disappointed to learn that our project would not be eligible under the recently announced joint federal-provincial grant program, and looking forward to getting some changes there, and thank the Mayor for continued pressure in that regard. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Munkoff-Swain, your second question.
So this question is about $29.5 million and the potential for change orders and the project kind of going beyond what we approve in our borrowing bylaw. Projects can and have the tendency to go over budget. While I'm confident in the 29.5 number that you guys are providing to us, things happen. This is, I've never been around a project of this magnitude before, so a couple of questions about this. So what happens if the construction manager comes back to the town, if they're halfway through the project and they're saying, hey, look, we're not going to be able to meet this at 29.5, we need an additional X. Obviously, we need to change our borrowing bylaw, but it's going to be pretty hard for council to stand up there and say, hey, we need $2 million to finish this off. Can you provide it, right? It's going to be pretty hard to say no to that. But that's a concern, and we've heard it throughout the community on different projects about where is council's role in this. Now, obviously, administration is working with BRT to administer the contract, but what's council's role? What sort of oversight do we have to avoid the slippage? Again, referencing my lack of construction experience.
Okay. Your Worship, through the council, members of council, you don't have a crystal ball, so I'm just going to start out just putting that flat out. But some of the stuff that we built into this process was through best practices. We do have a healthy contingency built into the 29.5, so that's going to that will cover us for any of those small surprises and things like that. But the one thing you cannot prepare for is, let's say at month 12, 13, 14, all of a sudden oil shoots up and everything else, costs of labor and things like that go up. But what you want to have is a lot of those fees, and that's what and this is why the construction manager process is so good with the fixed fee process, is it locks in a lot of those prices early. So we're going to be taking advantage of a lot of the prices and a lot of that work up front. So a lot of that commitment is built into the project. Still, there's going to be change orders, and we try to work within those change orders within that $29.5 million budget. If you get into those situations where you have to make some choices, then those things are coming back before council, and that might be a significant quality control issue where you have to make a choice in terms of, door A or door B. Both will be very good options for this type of facility, just that it may not be at the same standard as the other option. Or it may be that at that time, council will have to make a decision on the cost of the project. But one of the things that we do is through the staff's due diligence. We ride the architects and we ride the construction manager fairly hard about the costs. And in my experience, I've been involved in building of 5 facilities, and out of the 5, I can say that 4 of them came in on budget. 1 didn't. And so that's just basically, sometimes it's just out of your control. That's all I can really offer you there. I know we have some construction people here. It's the same thing from your worship or from Councillor Hendricks, or maybe some, you sometimes just don't know what comes at you.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate that administration is with us on this, in the sense that you don't want to see it going over budget just as much as we do as well. I'm just curious around that process, because I'd hate for us to come back in front of us and really I wouldn't see any other option but to continue to approve the funding. So that helps me. So I'll sit back.
Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sake of brevity, I will not echo the comments of our previous 2 councillors in their opening remarks, because I agree with everything he said right down the line. So a couple of quick comments, though, is that we did have a meeting last Tuesday, Committee of the Whole, when the architect was there, and we asked some very pointed questions of the gentleman about our project. One of my questions was, for the people in the audience who weren't there or listening live last week, concerns that we are going to build a quality building. It's going to last us 30 years. It won't be Aqua-Fit, where we're sitting here 10 years later fixing the infrastructure within that building, building the envelope itself. And he answered the questions quite competently. I believe, I'm confident now the answer we got last Tuesday is that the budget of $29 million will build us a quality building with proper materials, proper construction estimations. I anticipate we won't be sitting here 5 years from now or 10 years from now or 15 fixing this building in the future. I'm very confident the answer we got, that those people who didn't listen on live, that I'm satisfied with the answers we got from the architect and Mr. Hilton's experience as administration in these kind of projects. So that to me is a huge factor. We can't afford to build something that needs to be repaired in 5 or 10 years. We can't have that happen. And I'm confident from the answer we got that that will not be the case in this construction thing. Second of all, Council was very prudent in this project. Capital project was approved, subject to government funding. As Mr. Hills mentioned in the presentation, that the MSI and the gas tax, the rules have changed using that facility, so we have some options. I'm pretty sure most council would have felt that had the MSI not changed or gas tax not changed, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight with an option to move forward at all. So we've had some fortune with that. Some misfortune, as Councillor Monkoff-Swain and Manuka mentioned, that we're disappointed that the government is not coming forward right with additional funding. I've spoken to Minister Anderson and Minister Jansen on numerous occasions, as other councillors have too, to remind them of the necessity to support our local projects in collaboration with our partners. Mayor Stewart's doing a very good job lobbying them too, so our efforts are not going any further. We'll continue to go further forward on getting government funding, so thank you very much. I support the motion.
Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. It sounds like we're not really asking questions at this point. We're making statements. So
we're sort
I can make this one into a question at the end by saying, "Don't you think?" But I've had experience doing that.
We're sort of doing both.
Okay, so I'm supportive of this project and have been during my campaign as well. And I look at the other side of the ledger. I'm looking at the benefits of recreation, and what does this project add to our community and to the recreation facilities that we already have? I would say just a quick list that I put together in thinking about this for tonight was that we can keep our children and our families and our friends and relatives closer to home cuts down on the travel time. Our seniors will be able to walk and ride to a safe and nearby facility that can provide them with longevity and quality of life. We can swim, we can jog, we can do fitness, we can socialize. These are all the things that comes with this. Hard to put a price tag on this when you think about the quality of life. Rock climbing, extra activities. Our kids are usually looking for things to do that it's not causing them to get into trouble. So it's nice to have a place where they can do that. Indoor soccer, we haven't even started that. We have gymnasiums, but we don't have any place where the kids can play a game and the teams can meet. So that's a low-cost sport that many people can play without a lot of equipment. And the list does go on, but I think health and wellness and recreation, that's the main reason why I'm supportive of this project. I know that the due diligence, you can only do so much, crystal ball, crystal gazing. I've been around many of these projects. I don't think as a manager of some of them in the big city to the north, and I've never yet seen everything in line before the project has been shovel ready and started to be built. So I look forward to us continuing to have due diligence, and I know our administration will do their very best. So I want to get started as well. The costs are only going to go up and our needs are going to increase. So I'm definitely supportive of this project.
Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, thank you. And just really an echo to everything else that's been stated here already this evening. Just a shout out to those who were involved right from the beginning, which really is at the time of the first annexation, which is how these lands were acquired, and the process started to work towards this facility. The amount of humanity, people, meetings, review, discussion, has been tremendous to get us to where we are today. The public and their support, the vetting, the process of drawing, the review of the package, the quality of the consultant team has been tremendous. And we're now at a market which is at the bottom, and you couldn't get it any cheaper than you are today. So very competitive out there. I'm not concerned, as I am a contractor, I'm not concerned that there'll be an issue with respect to escalating costs because of the team. I think we got an excellent team here. I think it's been vetted, ready to go, and I'm very proud of what this community has done to get it to this point, and looking forward to it moving forward. So, thank you.
Okay, are there any more questions of council on the technical aspects of this before I bring us to page 81 of 144 and we start talking money? Councillor Moncaswayne.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, I want to acknowledge what Councillor Hendricks just mentioned there, and want to thank both him and Councillor Barnhart and administration for helping walk through this process. Obviously, coming in new to it, I'll say I've thrown a few bumps in the road along it, but you've brought me back on track many times, so I appreciate that from all sides. With regards to there's a 12-week process that you mentioned for the pre-construction, and then a 20-month process for the construction. My understanding is at some point during that 12-week process, there is potential opportunity for council to have kind of one last vote on this, depending on those discussions, how they play out. Now, that obviously gives us chance to get potentially other funding streams for this. So could you just speak to that, about what opportunity there is after today's vote in terms of council to essentially give this project the green light?
Yeah. Thank you, Your Worship, and to members of council. So on page 83 of 144, there is a matrix or a table that lists the various steps that will be taken. So basically immediately BR2 would do an expression of interest for a construction manager, and that would last for a few weeks in terms of their selection process and everything else. Once they award the construction manager for phase 1 pre-construction activities, that's where that person will kick in, and they do a lot of their due diligence in terms of tender all components of the work, prepare detailed construction schedules, etc., submit stipulated, and then basically there'll be a week for BR2 and Beaumont review and complete pre-construction services. And that's kind of where we'd be coming into you guys and saying this has gone through another review. We've gone through 2 reviews of pricing. This is the third kind of absolute review, where they're actually with everything detailed, designed, and everything else, where they're actually looking at it, and it's going to come back to you with that price. And we're pretty confident, as we've had 2 independent reviews of the 29.5, but it gives us that opportunity for that one last kick at it. Also, as you did indicate, that's also an opportunity in the interim, if we have any other funding announcements and stuff like that that we can work for, we can have those ribbon cuttings and ceremonies and celebrations and things like that at that point. But we do have to, so basically that would probably happen at that last meeting of September, that first week of October, to get into that mid-October timeline.
So just to confirm, there will be a request for decision in front of council.
There would be basically at that point, that would be the request to move forward at that September-October meeting. That would be the final. This is, you guys are basically approving the phase part 1 pre-construction. The late September, early October is the drop dead date.
Good explanation. Thank you.
Which is the motion coming after we finish with this one. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Through your worship to Mr. Helps. I would like to see an aggressive pursuit of sponsorship possibilities, and in particular naming rights, to help us defray some of the expenses of this project. Could you speak to what opportunities might exist, or what plans you have to pursue them?
So through your worship and through the members of council, through this, we can create a tailor-made sponsorship program for the Aqua-Fit Phase 2. We do have the basis of sponsorship work that's been done in the past for the various facilities that can be used as a baseline for that. We are in some of the discussions with partners and things like that, and sponsorship and stuff like that. Naming rights are thrown around, and things like that. So those things will come back before you do a naming right of a facility. It would come back before council. Basically, all within our corporate sponsorship program, any type of sponsorship program where there might be a room or a room involved, or a naming right of facility and stuff, they come back for final approval by council. So through that whole process, and even after it's built and it's being used and stuff like that, sponsorship is always part of the process. But we just have to basically get that, get this first part going, and then we can kind of work with those parallel.
So yes, it is contingent on this being an ongoing project and us moving forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? All right, if I can direct council's attention to page 81 of 144, because once again, I think we should have a brief discussion about what we're proposing to do and how we're proposing to pay for it. Looking at all 4 columns, I'm personally in the column 4, where we apply the federal gas tax, some of our MSI, and the debt retirement from the Ken Nickel when it comes off in 2021. Because otherwise, I don't see myself supporting this project. I still think we need to get some more grants and get to further reduce it. But I think, we should get this process on the road to see what the final numbers are going to be, and if we can find those grants between now and October and take advantage of the construction season. So I'm just looking for some guidance from council that's the page we're on, because that's the page I'm on, and if we're not on the same page, I'm not prepared to go. Comments from council? Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I am content that the 4th column there is a reasonably prudent fiscal way in which to proceed with this project. And I think the time for deliberation on this is largely over. It's time that we move forward with all deliberate speed.
Thank you. Councillor Barnhart?
Thank you, Worship. And I just have a question, because I was assuming that was the column that we were going with. And I had written down in my notes $89 tax increase average, single-family residence. But then when I looked at it and saw that the line that I hadn't realized was the debt retirement was 2021. So I'm just questioning, is that when we start making the pay? Can you just explain that? I'm just confused by the 2021.
Mr. Hiltz.
Yes, and thank you, Your Worship, and the members of council. The 2021 is when the Ken Nickel debt retires, and we'd be able to apply that debt to the project. So basically, for the first few years, the project could cost as much as $120 a year. With the 2021, that would drop to $88.52. So basically, at that time period, that's when that debt retires. We're going to start applying that to it. But before that debt retires, that money's not there unless we take it from another form.
To your point, then, we need to approve both.
Not necessarily, because don't forget this is a 20-month construction period. By the time we're going to probably complete in 2020, and so like there's a little bit of bridge financing. So I think we just need to know about because like honestly, I was assuming 4, but I'm not going to take that for granted with the rest of council. Councillor Margot Swain.
So to your question, I certainly am a lot more comfortable with the fourth column, but I do have a question about the federal gas tax and applying it.
Sure.
Now's a good time?
Now's a good time, yeah, we're talking money, so.
Okay, this is my fourth of 4 question.
All right, no more. Just kidding. 5.
So the federal gas tax, and Mr. Harris may need to jump in here as well. So you referenced it earlier, Mr. Hiltz, about the fact that this program runs out in 2024. Now you also said you're confident that it is going to continue. Certainly there will be a lot of pressure from all municipalities across the country to ensure that happens. But from my experience and everything we've done here, we've never made that assumption that we're going to get that. Just like we're not assuming we're going to get any dollars for sponsorships, anything like that as part of this. When I look at this formula and the $88, to me that sounds very reasonable for residents, given all the comments that we've made about the benefits of recreation. But I'm concerned that number may not be a true reflection of the long-term 20-year borrowing limit. So if we are assuming that the federal gas tax goes to 2024, so 5 years, and if it doesn't get approved, that leaves 15 years where we can't apply that $1.01 million. So do you have the numbers in front of you today that'll show the impact to residents if that $1.01 million isn't applied for the remaining 15 years of this project? I get that there are other things that are going to happen. We're going to increase our residential tax base. We're hopefully going to increase our non-residential tax base as well that are going to help. But right now, from the information we've got in front of us, what would it look like? What would that annual tax increase look like for our residents if we don't get if that federal gas tax isn't continued?
Yeah. So if the federal, Your Worship, and through members of council, the federal gas tax is not continued, it would have an impact of approximately about $305 a year. That's if we do not apply any other sources of funding to that. So that is the biggest. That $1 million is probably the biggest impact to this project per year. But I'll let Mr. Harris confirm.
Mr. Harris.
Through your worship, to council and the public, if the federal gas tax does not continue beyond its term, all things being equal, the impact would be $280.77.
Thank you. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Column 4 or scenario 4 is the scenario that I would put my vote toward tonight to answer your question.
Thank you. Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a point of clarification that on column 4, which I also support as well, by the way, based on our previous discussions at council level, the MSI we're looking here is only half of the MSI we have allocated to our municipalities. So we're not putting all of our eggs in one basket, as the saying goes. We do have using prudent amount of MSI funding in scenario 4, and the annual is $88 per year per taxpayer, not per month. So many taxpayers have asked me, is that monthly? No, it's $88 per year. It's a big difference in $88 a month, obviously. We all know that, but some people were interpreting information out there that it was $88 on a monthly basis. It is not. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, again, to your question, yeah, I'm supporting column 4. Also supporting the fact that through all these years of being on council, the funding formulas that we've had from the federal government and the provincial government change a lot, but they replace them with other things. You can't leave a community like Beaumont and others stranded without federal municipal funding that way. So there's new names, there's new grant programs, there's new things, but ultimately there's still dollars. So, and they know that there would be a hue and outcry if all of a sudden all the municipalities would be cut short of, say, the federal gas tax funding piece. They'd have to replace it with something. So just having seen it for so many years and got the scar tissue that goes with it, you just understand that it continues to move in different directions under different names, but it still continues to be funded. So,
no, I appreciate that. Councillor Monkoff-Swain.
Thank you. And to Councillor Hendrick's point, I haven't seen it before. I don't have the scar tissue. So my concern around this is, if we're looking at the numbers, and the numbers quoted back to us is $280 odd per year, and that's a significant. I mean, it's all significant, but that's going back and a huge impact to our residents. The reason why I do support this motion now is because, and the reason for my question earlier is we do get another kick at the cat. There is the option for other funding to come through. So I do support and will be voting for this motion tonight. But I'll be I'm looking forward to the continued pressure on the provincial government and other regional partners to help provide this project. So I will be supporting the motion, but that is given everything that has been said, and I hope the federal government will do that. We also hope the provincial government would be providing that recreational dollars, and they didn't do that. So I support the motion tonight, but looking forward to seeing what comes over the next 12 weeks and before the final vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hendricks, some closing comments before we call the question.
Thank you, and just and really nothing further to the issue of that one-time picture that we've got today, but keep in mind, this is a very, shall we say, dynamic community financially as we grow. Thankfully, we're one of the larger growing municipalities in Canada, and with that comes growth, and with that comes another assessment value, which also ties to numbers that in 4 or 5 years from now will equate to a different per house number. So if the town was had to close its doors as a result of some other type of issue, be it mining or whatever, and that all of a sudden this town became very quiet, yeah, I'd be concerned. But we've always had a nice growth pattern. We continue to have one. Our assessment growth is huge in this community, and it'll defray these numbers as we move forward. So, and as we bring in new people, more people help with the baseline on the assessment piece. So, which also helps on the per unit number that we currently work with. So, looking forward to the ongoing growth that Beaumont continues to enjoy. So,
thank you very much. All right. Call the question on the first motion of the evening, that Council directs administration to engage BR2 Architecture to initiate the construction manager process for the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 project as outlined in this report. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Do I have a council member willing to move motion number 2, that council further directs administration to bring back the final construction costs and construction process prior to the beginning of the construction of the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 project? Councillor Hendricks.
Your Worship, my pleasure to move report purpose number 2. And that is that council further directs administration to bring back the final construction costs and construction process prior to beginning the construction of the Aqua-Fit Phase 2 project.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All in favor? Carried. All right. Business item 7C. Thank you very much, Council, for that last discussion. It was really, really good. I really appreciate all the input, and hopefully we can move forward with some speed. All right, item 7C, Empowering Women Entrepreneurs, Beaumont Night Market. Mr. Hiltz.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of the Council. I have Marlene Arena with me to answer some of the questions that might be more detailed regarding the report. Basically, this is the third annual Beaumont Night Market. They're coming before us to ask for some funding support from Council to assist with some of the costings of the additional of the outdoor tent for the night market. At the last Council meeting, Empowering Women Entrepreneurs did an unregistered presentation and provided some insight into their night market and the growth and what they're anticipating for the 2018 event that's taking place in October. And so administration is recommending the Council provide $2,000 in sponsorship funding for that event, and that's to come out of the Council grant funding amount of $13,000. But Council also reserves the right to apply a different amount if they so choose. And I'm going to open up for any questions at this time.
Thank you very much. Are there questions of administration? Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much, Mr. Hiltz and Mr. Arana. Just the question is how that amount was arrived at. Mr. Hiltz, if you wouldn't mind, just because I know the request was for 10,000. So I'm just wondering how the 2,000 was arrived at.
Yeah. So thank you. Good question. And through Your Worship and through members of Council, that amount came up because it's usually a kind of a consistent amount that Council provides to groups for their events. And I know at time for time there's different amounts that are played with, but it has been, since I've been here, it's been a fairly consistent amount that we've given, especially for the first time asks and things like that. So we based it on that. But as I said before, Council has the opportunity to provide additional funding, but it's out of that 13,000 that they do have.
Fair enough. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Through you, Your Worship, to the presenters. So the market environment in Beaumont is vibrant. We have the Beaumont Night Market, which is before us now, the market at the Aqua-Fit, and we have the new Beaumont Centreville Market, which I've been to the last couple of weekends, and it's been great and it's been fun. Supporting this is important to myself. One of the questions I have tonight of administration is around our ability to support this and where the support might be able to come from. Administration, I'm wondering if the $100,000 that was set aside for economic development to Council, if this piece of money would be appropriate to use to look at supporting an event such as this along the economic development legs of that journey. The Beaumont Night Market brings people to town, it brings vendors to town, it brings traffic to town, and as we heard last week, it continues to grow. Just wondering if that piece of budget might be appropriate to look at funding this.
Through Your Worship and to members of Council, that is something that we have not discussed administratively, but I can turn it over to our CAO if he has any additional comments to that. And
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship, members of Council. Yeah, as Mr. Hiltz said, the $100,000 was put as a placeholder in the budget to fund economic development initiatives that Council had agreed on and directed. So the parameters really end there. So is it possible? Yes. It's something that would have to be directed by Council by a carried vote.
Thanks. I have a quick question for the presenter. What kind of support are you looking for from Council today, and what would the money be used for?
I came here to close a deal, so thank you very much to Mr. Kerry Hiltz, Council, administration, and to the community. Just a few comments. The reason why we're looking for $10,000 is really for more infrastructure and to keep this event here in Beaumont. And that infrastructure is a supersized tent through River City Tents, which would take up the whole east side of the parking lot, attaching it to the CCBCC so it creates a U-shaped traffic and remove some of the vendorship out of the hallways that we did last year because it was just too many people. It was 4,000 people. If we create more of an easier flow of traffic, we also increase potentially 30 to 40 more vendors within that tent. And then last year, as I presented in my unregistered presentation, I stated the range of sales per vendor was between $1,000 and $3,900 in sales per vendor. Now, let's lowball it a little bit and let's say it's $1,500 per person just in the tent per vendor. You're looking at $45,000 more in sales for these businesses. And out of the 58 vendors that have been already selected, 3 of them are only storefront. The rest are home-based businesses. And what I've heard today and what I've heard in the past is that we want economic development. We want to create this platform. I think the Beaumont Night Market is a spectacular event that creates that platform. You know, I've heard it this evening that we want quality, we want to do it right. I think with this super tent we would be creating this event that is right. I also heard comments that we have a dynamic community that all of you are representing, and I'm here really championing for the home-based business and the storefront businesses that would like to see this event go through, and I'm asking for $10,000 today. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. All right, so we need to get a motion on the table, so I will make the motion and start the discussion that Council approves a request for up to $10,000 in sponsorship funding for the 2018 Beaumont Night Market to be held on October 20th, 2018. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Moncaf-Swain.
Okay. My question before I comment on the motion to the presenter. Firstly, congratulations on the success of your event. It's a good problem to have, but it is a problem that we need to address. So you're looking for more space. I get that, understand that. Have you thought about engaging with the senior centre, which is right next door? They do have a large space. They're obviously looking for funding for a roof and all that sort of stuff. It's not exactly the flow you're looking for, but have you engaged with them to see if there was an option to potentially put some vendors in that space there?
Thank you to the Mayor, to Mr. Councillor Moncaf-Swain. When you do events like these, when you separate vendors, the vendors don't like it. The vendors, let's say if we do put them in the senior center, they wouldn't get as much traffic. And so we try to provide the same platform, the same showcasing. When in the CCBCC you have the stage, you have sound, you have that energy flow. We plan very strategically with the design of it. And if we were to add another section, I don't think they would be as successful. Also, I don't know if there would be vendors that would be interested in being in the senior center, and I think that would increase our cost in which we would have to design the senior center to fit in with the night market branding.
Okay, I have a follow-up.
Sure.
So a follow-up then. So you asked for 10. Administration's recommending 2. If you get 2, does that get what you're looking for? A large tent? Does $2,000 provide that enough funding for that?
I really want to thank each of you for your consideration and your time tonight. So I am very appreciative of the $2,000. Unfortunately, I would have to go back to the board and to the night market committee and to our vendors, and if I'm not sure what we can do with that. And like I said, we want to do it right. We would like to bring in more individuals. I think it would promote Beaumont even more, saying that we do have a super tent. I think it would bring in more guests from our surrounding area rather than, it's just a community center or community center and senior center. There isn't that wow factor. Let's showcase our dynamic community in the right way, in my personal opinion.
Quick question. How many guests are you expecting to attend this year?
Well, the first year we had 1,600 guests. Last year we had 4,000. We have a great team. It's just not myself. We have a lot of volunteers that we, volunteer tirelessly in order to bring this platform to life. I'm very shy on stating what the goal is, but I have a feeling that we might hit $6,000, 6,000 people, sorry.
Thank you very much. Any further comments from Council? Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. And I guess, Mr. Hiltz, I understand your rationale was based on grants for, and I want to say events, but we don't even have that policy yet. So I'm a little bit caught on some of the past. We've talked about not making policy on the fly, and we want to do this right. For the economic development strategy to be the source of funding, what would it take for us to do that? Do we need to send the administration back and say, how can we do it, or can we make a motion and that's not going to upset our new economic development officer too much? I'm just wondering about the process for that, because to me this is not about a festival or an event. This is about economic development. So I'd really like to support it from that perspective and not have it look like we're treating one event differently than others.
Right. So thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, you have two options. One would be to send it back to administration and bring back another report based on the $100,000, or you could approve tonight to take out of that, as our CEO Schwartz had indicated, that $100,000 is there for economic development initiatives. You could take some funding from there. Caution, I don't know what else is coming out of that funding and what they've promised and stuff like that. So, at this point, it could be that we'd come back to with another report on that portion of the funding.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hiltz. I'm kind of leaning not to supporting taking it out of the ED funds because I don't know what the economic development officer is coming. But I do know that this town we have 13,000 funds up for grabs tonight in that one fund. I know we have some contingencies elsewhere. I'm just as confident that we can send it back to administration and have them find the cash somewhere.
Well, we do have the option of the CAO contingency fund, and that is for emergency type of services throughout the year. So some funding could come out of that as well. I don't want to have to speak for Mr. Schwartz and spend his money, but it is a funding source that we have used in the past to fund opportunities outside of the grant funding stream.
Thank you. Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Just want to clarify something. So through your Worship to Mr. Arana. Sorry, excuse me, Arana. The $10,000 to be used is this for the purchase or for the rental of a super tent?
Through the mayor to Councillor Stout. Unfortunately, it's $12,000 to rent a tent. And I've done some research with administration, with other organizations. In order to purchase a tent, the engineering costs would be even more. To store that tent would be even more. So until we have more infrastructure here in Beaumont, we're just trying to find a solution.
So, follow up. So the fundamental problem here is a lack of suitable space for this event.
That's correct.
That's being addressed by a temporary $10,000 fix each time, or $12,000 fix each time that you run the event. Presumably, if we made this grant tonight, then you would need a subsequent grant in subsequent years to do the same thing.
That is a potential, but another potential is the fact that we put on another spectacular event, that we bring in more sponsorship and we'll get Beaumont more on the map, that there's more bigger companies that would want to sponsor this.
Mr. Hiltz.
Yes, so just further to that, to your worship, to members of council, is that there is the potential, if all cards line up, and mid-October, we may have an Aqua-Fit Phase 2 that will have a significant field house that would be able to be used for an event like this.
And I'm pretty confident that as council has gone before, I'm off that topic now, not the Aqua-Fit Phase 2, but as council's gone before, I'm pretty sure the stipulation on this grant would be the same as other grants that we've given this year, that this is a one-time shot till that granting policy gets in place and we figure out what we're going to do long-term. I don't foresee that one-shot policy going away, unfortunately. I know people don't want to hear that, but this is sort of a one-shot policy in line with the rest of what we've done. Councillor Munkoff-Swain.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also want to acknowledge, and I was remiss from not doing it before, but the efforts that you and the board have gone through to attract sponsorship. And I understand that, we being the taxpayer, is the last point of call. You have done everything you possibly can to grind out sponsorships, and haven't need to come before us before. So I really appreciate that. It isn't the first call, hey, let's go and ask the town for money. So thank you for that. I do support it coming out of the $100,000 Economic Development Fund. The motion on the table is $10,000. We've got another $5,000 that's coming up. My understanding it's only 13, so I'm not sure how that works. But I really think that this $10,000 is to support our local businesses, our home-based businesses. It is generating significant business opportunities for them and promotion. But Mr. Rana, you said you came here to close the deal, so I got one last question for you to close it for me. What is the town going to get for this $10,000? So I'll be asking a similar question going forward on the next presenter, but I want to support this, but I also don't just want to see a logo on the corner of a pamphlet. What can you offer? Maybe a chance for the mayor to get up and sing a song or something like that to promote the town.
Nobody wants to hear me sing. Trust me.
But I guess
I'll volunteer my daughters to dance.
Yeah. So my point is that if we're providing money from the taxpayer, how can there be value from the town for that $10,000?
To the mayor, through to Councillor Monkoff-Swain, thank you for that question. The town of Beaumont, what I'm looking for, is a partnership. And that partnership would be the platinum sponsor, and anytime we're on CTV, because they're planned on coming out, CTV News, we're going to be on Global News. Ryan Jesperson has also invited myself and another guest to speak about this event. So in every marketing possibility, I would mention Beaumont as our platinum sponsor, but not only that, but a partner, and that a council and community that cares for the home-based business and the development of business. Just because we're small doesn't mean we can't be dynamic and energetic, and that's how I would showcase your decision tonight.
Councillor Daniluk.
Thank you, Your Worship. One quick question and a quick comment, if I may. The question is, my understanding that you do not charge vendors to attend the event. Vendors come of their own accord and promote themselves, and there's no cost for them to attend the market. Is that correct?
To Councillor Daniluk, your question was, we do not charge the vendors?
Correct.
No, the vendors do pay a table fee. It's $160 this year. First year was $50 per table. We were at a loss at the end of that event. Last year was $150. This year we're at $160, and it's all for cost recovery. We're around $9,000 to $10,000 just for marketing, entertainment, permits, design. Patcher Energy has to provide energy as well. This year it's going to be around $4,000 to $6,000 for that expense alone. We have that covered. What we're looking for is mainly for the infrastructure.
I apologize. I was misinformed. I thought the vendors were there at no cost, and you were doing your own fundraising on your own. So thank you for clarifying that for me. I'm inclined to support the motion. The reason being, I'm immensely impressed at how this event has gone from nothing 2 years ago to what it is now. We provide the Blues Festival with $50,000 of money from the town, and I think I'm prepared to take a one-year gamble on this, if you will. As Monkoff-Swain, my fellow councillor, mentioned, what's in it for the town. I think for 1 year I'm prepared to assist and help you get to the next level to make this event as big as it can be. I'm very impressed with how it's developing, and I will be hopefully very aggressive in our assessment how well our investment was this year. Should this motion be approved, but I think economic development is a big part of our cornerstone. Home businesses are a big part of that as well. I'm prepared to partner for the first year and see how it goes, and see where it takes us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Councillor Van Newkirk.
One final comment through your mayor to the presenter. If funding is approved tonight on the back end, I really appreciate all the support we'd get through the media sources that you'd be available to speak with and to promote Beaumont. One other ask that I would have would be to bring a report per se back to council and share with us how you did. Presentation on stats and where you did, what went well, what didn't. How did your sponsorships work out? What did the financials look like? I think it'd be good information for us to know, so that we have it. It seems to be a fairly common practice from what I've seen, for those that are granted funding from council to bring back something similar. You probably had that in mind, but I just wanted to formally put that ask out there.
Okay, seeing no further discussion on the motion, we'll start the vote. All in favor?
Sorry to say clarification.
Clarification?
Are we voting, so the motion that you put forward was $10,000?
Yes.
That was out of the... Doesn't matter?
Doesn't
Where
say.
it came from?
So I would just say we'll vote the $10,000 and we'll let administration sort out where the money comes from.
Is that...
It doesn't preclude ED, it doesn't preclude anything else. We'll let them find it. That's their job. Anyway, called the vote. All in favor? That carries unanimously.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda. Roots Fair funding request. Mr. Hiltz.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Basically, we have, at the last council meeting of June 12th, Vicki Walker and Carrie Bauer were in attendance, and they discussed the third annual Rural Roots Fair for Beaumont, which is taking place in August 25th and 26th of 2018. Their ask to council was up to $5,000, and what they were providing for the $5,000 was that, we'd be named as sponsors, for example, the pony rides, the wagon rides, the professional face painting, etc. And in terms of also, the administration has also asked that the $5,000 would be inclusive of all building permits required for the fair, etc., moving forward. So as part of this, administration is recommending the $5,000, but council has the authority to not approve or approve another amount. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wills, just a clarifying question. The $5,000 is inclusive of the building permits?
Yes.
Do we know how much that $5,000 those building permits
it's
would be?
It's about $168 approximately.
Okay, so we're basically looking at $4,800.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a council member prepared to make the motion? Councillor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will move that the council approves up to $5,000 in sponsorship funding for the Beaumont District Agricultural Society Annual Rural Route Fair being held in Beaumont, August 25th and 26th, 2018. Thank you very much.
Are there any specific events you'd like to specifically sponsor, or just let them pick?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. I apologize.
Sorry. Are there any specific events you're advocating we sponsor, or just put the money in and let them pick?
I'm fine with the suggestions in the document provided by administration with my motion. Thank you.
Okay, that currently comes to $5,200.
Oh, I can't do the math today.
$4,800.
Sorry.
But, Mr. Hiltz.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship and members of council. I just got some up-to-date information. So what's available is the pony rides for $2,000, wagon rides for $1,200. They have a stock dog demo for sheep, that's $1,000. They have stock dog demo for ducks, which is $1,000, and horse and hound, which is also $1,000. That's tentative, sorry. So a couple of the other events since the last meeting they have sponsored out. So we can work out.
Okay, I'm thinking what he's saying is let's leave it in his hands. I agree.
Thank you very much.
Make sure you
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Hello, through you, Your Worship, to the presenter. I'm prepared to support the motion as presented by Councillor Danlock as well. We attended last year, both myself and family, and one of the things that impressed me was the fellow that was on the mic, and they were talking about the different events that were happening and who was sponsoring what, and this event is brought to you by such and such, and this event is brought to you by such and such. I assume that would continue. Trust me in that there is good visibility for sponsors at this event. I witnessed it last year. I wouldn't support getting into the nitty-gritty here tonight about what event we're sponsoring. I would...
Come on, this is fun. Sure.
No, thank you.
No, I agree. After seeing how that went, I agree.
And I don't think that's a discussion relevant for what we're doing tonight, but I do support the $5,000 ask. I would also ask administration to consider the funding for this coming out of that $100,000 pot as a potential source of funding as we figure out where the funding comes from, and would look forward to hearing that from administration in a form of a report similar to the last ask.
Sure. So just to summarize, we just approve the 5,000 and put it back to admin to figure out where it's coming from, and then come back and tell us where they took it from. Fair enough.
Fair enough. I would say.
Sorry, I'm just summarizing it.
Yep.
Councillor Moncaswayne.
Short and sweet from me.
Really? Sorry.
Thank you. This is a great event. I think the Society does a great job. I fully support it. I'm looking forward to attending again. I think this is, when we're talking about providing sponsorship, it's about value for our residents. I know there's a lot of residents that go out and attend that. To me, that is what our community is. We celebrate our agricultural roots, and this is a great example of that. So my full support for the $5,000, and thank you for all the volunteer work that goes into organising an event such as this.
Thanks. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Worship, and to the presenters. And Mr. Hiltz, thank you very much. And I do support this event. I am hoping, and I know we will have discussions in the future about grant funding versus sponsorship dollars versus economic development strategy dollars. I mean, that's making me a little nervous, but that's not about not supporting this event. I think it's a great event, and it celebrates what we have said in our vision about our agricultural roots. It says everything, and it brings people in, so keep going. And yes, I support it.
All right, seeing no more requests to speak, we'll call the vote. All in favor? Councillor Danlock, gonna vote? Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you. It didn't register the first time. Anyway, neither here nor there. All right, next item up on the agenda, public participation policy. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the Council and to the public, at this time, administration is recommending that Council ratify Policy C1, Public Participation Policy, as adopted July 24th, 2012. Back in October, the province introduced a new section 216.1, which requires municipalities to develop a public participation policy by July 23rd, 2018. Because we adopted a policy back in 2012, theoretically it would exist, but come July 23rd, it would be outdated. Back in 2015, we updated the guide. However, we didn't update the policy to say that it was reviewed at the same time. So again, come July 23rd, our existing policy would be null and void, as the requirement under the guidelines is to review it every 4 years. Currently, Communications is reviewing the guideline and hope to come back to Council with an updated guideline in the fall, at which time the policy can be updated for any items that Council would like to see included into the policy. As it exists, the policy meets the requirements of the Municipal Government Act under Section 216.1, which on page 92 are, it informs, there's input, it listen and learn, and it's collaborative.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. Do I have somebody a councillor prepared to move the motion? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Hello, through you, Your Worship, to the presenter. I would move that we take the recommendation as presented. For myself, am I able to comment after that?
Comment ever, yeah.
For myself, I move this with the intent of meeting the requirements of the MGA on the 23rd. I do fully intend on bringing comments, questions, and wish to see a much more rigorous exercise around this and community involvement and development, specifically us asking the community how they wanted to be communicated with and providing that opportunity for feedback in the fall. I think that's going to be paramount. I was going to bring a notice of motion forward previously, but wanted to let this process be a little more clean in that we do this tonight to meet the requirements. In the fall, we come back and we have a further discussion on it. So those are my comments.
No, fair enough. I too echo those comments. So any other comments from members of council? All right, hearing none, call the vote. Councillor Daniluk. Thank you. Carried unanimously. I know it's just, yeah, technology. Sometimes it works, sometimes it. All right. Whew. Item 8A, bylaw 914-18, Triumph Phase 6 Land Use Bylaw Amendment, second and third readings. Mr. Wong.
Thank you, Your Worship. A public hearing was held earlier this evening, and the administration supports this applications to amend the land use bylaw from R1A low-density residential district to R1B low-density small lot residential district and PRS public recreation services district, as shown on Schedule A of the bylaw 914-18. Because it transitions well into the adjacent residential neighborhood and also complies with the higher level order plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a member of council prepared to move second reading? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Follow-up comments at all? You don't have to. It's just optional. All right, further discussion from members of council. Okay, hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of second reading? That carries unanimously. Do I have a member of council prepared to move third reading? Councillor Van Newkirk.
So moved.
Discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none. Call the vote. That carries unanimously. All right, next bylaw on the agenda tonight. Bylaw 915-18, Municipal Reserve Disposal Place Belarus, second and third reading. Mr. Wong.
Thank you, Your Worship. A public hearing was held earlier this evening for this bylaw to dispose an MR parcel. The administration recommends that first, Council gives second and third readings to bylaw 915-18 to dispose of the MR destination in lot 11 MR, Block 5, Plan 152, 1520 to accommodate the relocation to swap of the MR land from the north portion of the site to the south portion of the development area, and that Council authorize the designated officer to notify Registrar of the Land Titles Office to remove the destination of the MR from Lot 11 MR, Block 5, Plan 152, 1520 in accordance of the Municipal Government Act. As mentioned before, administration received one submission from the Duke County that they don't have any concerns about this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a member of council prepared to move second reading? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Call the vote. That carries unanimously. Do I have a member of council prepared to move third reading? Councillor Hendricks.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? That carries unanimously. All right, next bylaw on the agenda this evening, bylaw 916-18, Place Belarus Phase 7, second and third reading. Mr. Wong. Whoops. Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Worship. On the last bylaw, we do need a motion with regards to designating an officer. So there's
Sorry?
actually 3 motions within that one
Whoop.
bylaw.
Missed that one. Where are we at? Which page?
Page 31.
121.
Page 30. Sorry. 121.
Okay. I see where we're at. So we got second and third reading. We need going back one on agenda item. Can I get who's the designated officer? We have to designate the officer, or we just got to pass this motion?
Just need to do the motion first.
All right. Councillor Barnhart, prepared to move the motion?
Yes, so moved, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion. It's killing me. Seeing none, all in favor? That carries unanimously. All right, so moving back down the agenda, bylaw 916-18, place shall the East Phase 7, second and third reading. Mr. Wong.
Yeah, thank you. Again, a public hearing was held earlier this evening for this redistricting bylaw. This is a continuation of the disposal of the municipal reserve destination. The administration recommends that council gives second and third reading to the bylaw 916-18 to redistrict the development area as per new location of the new MR parcel to redistrict from C2 to PRS into a different configuration of the C2 and PRS districts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a member of council prepared to move second reading? Councillor Stout.
So moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Do I have a member of council prepared to move third reading? Councillor Hendricks.
Moved, Your Worship.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor? That carries unanimously. Just want to make sure I don't. All right. Next item on the agenda, bylaw 918-18, public notification bylaw. First reading, Mr. Harris.
Through your worship, to council and the public, before you is a recommendation that council give first reading to bylaw 918-18, public notification. Section 601 of the Municipal Government Act now allows municipalities to adapt their advertising methods to meet local needs. The flexibility on notification methods allow for current and future technologies and will allow the town to adapt their advertising, or for us to adapt the advertising methods to meet local needs. What the bylaw does is indicate that we would advertise through local weekly newspaper publication, which currently is allowed under the Act, and or electronically posting on our website, and or electronically posting on Town of Beaumont's official social media sites, and or by posting the notice predominantly on the digital sign located at the north entrance of Beaumont. And you have to identify which sign you're posting on. So you just can't say on a sign, so you have to identify the location. So if we add more electronic signs, we would be updating this bylaw. That's it.
Thank you very much. So just to clarify, we're just adding more methods to communicate? We're not...
That is correct.
Thank you. Do I have a member of council prepared to move first reading? Councillor Danlock.
So moved, Your Worship. Thank you.
Any questions for administration? Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just confused by the and or, because if I read that grammatically, that means you could pick one of those. And I would feel, if I could just make my point, I wouldn't like to just be doing either the paper and not the web, or either the web and not the paper, or just one sign and it be missed. So I'm just concerned about the language.
Through your worship, to Councillor Barnhart, the rest of council, and the public. Yes, it does have that NOR, but the idea behind that is if you're getting into a situation where there's a time crunch, what it allows you to do is to advertise on the town's website on a Wednesday following this council meeting, or even today, but say on the Wednesday, and it gives you 3 extra days, because otherwise you would have to wait to the Friday in the newspaper. It's not saying, and that's when the time starts. Counting down is from the day you post it, so 14 days. As we get into the borrowing bylaw, you'll note that you have to give basically 2 weeks after the advertising. So what it allows you to do is also advertise on the Facebook, social media. You hit the majority of people are using that method. Not as many people are using the paper kind of a deal. But you can also advertise in the paper. It just gives you that leeway to do things, especially if you have a time crunch that you need to get something done and you need public notification. And this is the recommendation from AUMA too also. This is how they recommend it.
The wording?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if it couldn't be any clearer just to say that we may advertise these ways. The and/or just to me gives the impression that we could limit it to just the one way. And I know this is not your intention, but it has been. I mean, people think that we're trying to limit their input, and that's not at all our intention. But this to me reads that way, so I'm having some difficulty with that. And I don't know if you can. Would you be bringing back the way that we'd be communicating so that council would at least know, or it would be administrative? You would just take it upon yourselves, which you would have the right to do, and just pick one, and then we might be finding ourselves not communicating to the people that need to hear. I'm just concerned about that.
Through your worship, to Councillor Barnhart, the rest of council, and the public. Well, in each of our RFDs that come to council, there's a section called Stakeholder Engagement and Communications. That's where we would be laying out.
You would tell us which way you're going to do.
Yes, and generally speaking, 99.9% of the time.
I'll be watching. Okay.
Well, no. Also, it identifies. We identify the paper through social media, through our website, through our, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if we go there. So those are there, and that's how we will communicate to council how the advertising is taking place.
Thank you very much. Any further questions of administration on the first reading? Hearing none. All in favor? That carries unanimously. All right. Item 8E, Bylaw 919-18, Forest Heights Phase 8 Redistricting. First reading, Mr. Wong.
His Worship, one more time. This bylaw is to redistrict a portion of the northeast quarter section 26, Township 50, Range 24, and west of the 4th Meridian in the Forest Heights neighborhood. The redistricting application proposes to amend the land use bylaw from the existing BR, Blended Residential District, to Direct Control District, as shown on the Schedule A and B of the bylaw. The proposed direct control district is based primarily on the existing BR blended residential district with modification to the lot width and side yard requirements. Smaller lots and narrower side yards developments are proposed to increase efficiency and affordability for residential density. The proposed district allows for both development with and without a laneway. In addition, only uses that are contemplated in the subject area are included in the proposed direct control district due to the site-specific nature of the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a member of council prepared to move first reading? Councillor Barnhart.
So moved, Your Worship.
Questions of administration? Councillor Van Newkirk.
Through you, Your Worship, to presenter. I've read through this forwards and backwards, and I'm struggling to get why. What's the motivation for this? I see the two lists. I see the word direct control district. We've struggled with direct control district here in this council term since I've been a part of it. We have a move back to it. There's probably a really good reason why. I don't understand that. That would be my first question. The second question is when we look to remove a duplex, remove multi-attached dwellings, I don't understand why we would want to do that. Just some further explanation on those couple of points, please. Thank you.
The first one is to talk about the users, because in the new developments, the developer, I believe they are not anticipating to build duplexes and multi-attached housing on there, so they just remove it from the district. So it's not to allow it. So second thing is to reduce the lot width a little bit. For example, the semi-detached housing, it is not too much from 8 meters to 7.9 meters, because that is according to the subdivision plan that they also submitted to us, and that is with a lane weight as well. So for the single detached housing, it is reduced from 10 meters to 8.5. There is a 1.5 meters reduction with a lane. But then, you will see that without a lane, it is actually increased by 0.3 meters, so to 10.3. So I believe that is also accommodating some parking issues for the area. So the width, because without a lane, then you need a wider front yard for that. And the side yard is for the internal lot, not for the corner lot. For the internal lot, it is reduced from 1.5 to 1.2. So by doing that, yes, it seems that it doesn't illustrate a big difference, but in order to do that, they can squeeze probably a couple more lots in the subdivision area, and that is why by increasing the density, it also improves the affordability of the area for the housing. So, and it doesn't change the build form too much. Yeah.
Just one follow-up comment. Just a comment and follow up. I support the striving towards the density targets. I support that, and I understand why we're doing that. I just would voice my concern that anytime we're squishing, similar to a conversation we've had in the past around parking, safety, the ability to travel, and the ability for emergency services to respond. And I know those are all taken into account as we bring these forward, but I still have those concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Stout.
Thank you, Worship. Through your Worship, Mr. Wong. I'd like to echo Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's concerns, actually. It's not entirely clear to me why we're doing this, other than to allow a slightly higher in density and a slightly greater number of lots to be created in the same space. But I'm also concerned that we create an extra direct control district, which is not something I'm anxious to do. Can the development not take place within the already agreed design guidelines, or is this something that we will have to revisit when we modify the land use bylaw?
For the time being, prior to the adoption of the new land use bylaw, and if there is no what we call the conventional zone in the land use bylaw, a direct control site-specific, that is a site-specific district, has to be created to accommodate the proposed development. But when the land use bylaw is being reviewed, all this development will be integrated and absorbed into the new land use bylaw. So by the time when the new land use bylaws are effective, there won't be as many of the direct control district in the new land use bylaw. But for the time being, yes, if that is the specific developments that the developer wants to propose, direct control is the way to go for now. But in less than 6 months to 8 months, we will have a new land use bylaw which will be incorporating all this into the new land use bylaw. Yeah, so.
Mr. Schwartz, a couple comments?
Yes, Your Worship, members of council, just a procedural caution here. According to our procedurals bylaw, first reading, council shall vote on the motion for first reading without amendment or debate. Now, there was a clarifying question, I get that, but I'm nervous that we're about to get into debate here, so I'm just tossing that out from a process perspective. At second reading, that's where the opportunity is to debate the substance of the bylaw and consider any amendments or changes.
Thank you very much for clarifying procedure. So, are there any further clarifying questions? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? Councillor Doe? No, Councillor Stout. You can't vote that way. First reading passes without amendment or debate. Your opportunity to defeat this is at section, or am I wrong? You can't vote against it. Oh. All right. That's my bad. I have, sorry, I read the procedural bylaw wrong. I was under the impression we had to, your opportunity was at number 2. Okay, my fault. No worries. That carries 6-1. All right, bylaw 922-18, Aqua-Fit Phase 2 boring bylaw. Mr. Harris.
To your worship, to council and the public, before you is 2 recommendations from council. The first is to give first reading to bylaw 922-18, Aqua-Fit Phase 2 borrowing bylaw, and second, to direct administration to advertise the bylaw in the Beaumont News on June 29th and July 6th. Earlier this evening, council passed a motion to proceed with the first phase of the Aqua-Fit 2 project, and then for the after that first phase to come back to council for final adoption. Currently, the bylaw is for $26,650,000. Below you is a timeline in regards to how the potential timing could have worked, but based on the earlier motion and in discussions with Mr. Hiltz, the bylaw would go for second and third reading on September 25th, 2018. Otherwise, you would have to make a decision on August 28th based on this timeline when you don't have all the information. So before you are those 2 recommendations.
Thank you very much. Is there a member of council willing to move the recommendation? Councillor Hendricks.
Your worship, so moved as amended.
What was the amendment?
To change the 25th of September.
Oh, sorry. Fair enough. Any discussion on the motion? Yes. It's 2 motions? Well, we'll do the first one first. Yeah. The council give first reading of bylaw number 922-18. Move the first motion. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none. Call the vote. That carries unanimously. Is there a member of council willing to move recommendation number 2 that council direct administration to advertise the bylaw in the Beaumont News on June 29th and July 6th, 2018? Councillor Daniluk.
So move, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Barnhart.
Just a question then. Are the dates correct, or do those dates change? In that motion, it says June 29th and July 6th.
Through your worship, to Councillor Barnhart, the rest of council, and the public. Those dates were just timing dates. To give you an idea where it is, what I've indicated that the second and third reading will not come back until September.
So the motion has to change.
No, the motion does not have to change.
It says June 29th and July 6th.
That's not part, okay.
It's
Through
a-
your worship,
That's the direction to when to advertise.
through your worship. No, we want to start the advertising right now. The reason for that is based on the timing in regards to the petition possibility. So you have to advertise twice, and then you have 15 days following the first 14 days, 2 weeks of advertising for somebody to come back and say, or the public come back and say, no, we don't want this, which if there's a successful petition, there's a different process to go forward in regards to getting it to second and third reading.
So the dates remain.
The dates remain other than the second and third reading at this time. Yeah.
Right. I'm just talking about the motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, call a question. All in favor? That carries unanimously. This brings us to item 9, councilor and committee reports. Is there a member of council who wishes to address council this evening? Hearing none. Item 10. Councilor Hendricks.
Just one comment. A big shout out to the town for Town and Country Days. Fabulous weekend. Lots of effort. Lots of personnel. Went incredibly well. Weather was on side. I heard nothing but positives. And promotions committee all around. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Hendricks. Councilor Danlock.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure if I have a question for the CEO for administration. Is now the time or after?
No, we're still on council's reports and statements.
Sorry, I misunderstood. Thank you.
CAO update. Mr. Schwartz.
I sent out an email earlier today that provided some updates on census, which we'll bring back to council. So I've got nothing else to add. It's after 10 o'clock, so Councillor Monkoff-Swain needs his beauty rest.
Councilor Danlock, you had a question for the CAO?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Question for administration through the CAO. We passed a motion 2 weeks ago to change our status from a town to a city. I'd like to know from an update from administration when we can expect the letter to be prepared and ready to go to the government of Alberta to grant that request for transition in status. Thank you.
Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Danlock. Currently, right now, Legislative Services is compiling all of the information. As you can imagine, there's a lot of information that goes into this, hundreds and hundreds of pages. So we are working on it. We hope to have it submitted to Municipal Affairs by next week, and we are still on target for the January 1st change of status.
Follow up? No. Any further questions for the CAO? Are there any notices of motion this evening? All right, there are no in-camera items, so we are adjourned.